Now, whoever goes the longest without puking gets the last piece of pie in the fridge.
Sexism in gaming.
How's everybody doing?
Good so far.
All right.
Without a doubt, there will be backlash because I'm not as bangable as the previous host. It's somehow...
Talk to him, Frost!
Nothing yet. Cool.
It has somehow been expected that you can talk about how much you jerked off to women as a compliment. It's not a compliment.
It's weird.
It's dehumanizing and it's weird. Women do not exist to be nice on the eyes for you. Morgan Webb, Olivia Munn did not exist to be nice on the eyes for you. You don't need to explicitly objectify women or declare that you hate women to be sexist.
I'm starting to feel funny.
Well, I feel fine. I guess I'm gonna be...
The experiment and controlled for the very...
I get to eat...
Those reactionary threads thinking that I'm somehow ruining your current X-Play experience because you can't objectify me how you previously did to Morgan. If you don't like it, don't watch it. Peace.
Well, I'd say that's one hell of an introduction.
I don't know what that girl is talking about. I jerk off to like all my women.
Wow. She must be very proud of you then if she finds it out. Anywho, hello there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the War on Pop Culture. I'm Special Agent Spooky Clutter.
I'm Special Agent Carter Sauce.
With a knife, apparently. And we are joined by the King of the Nation, as always. And we are also joined by two other special guests. One that's been on here before, Mr. Danner Bobanner, a.k.a. Joe Swanson.
Howdy, howdy.
And we also have Jedi Master Wolfmann from Mega Moviez.
Oh, yeah.
Woo-woo!
Welcome aboard.
Yeah. All right, so here we are. We're talking about multiple different things. One of the biggest things we're going to be talking about is Star Wars and how it's declined ever since the sequel trilogy came out. That's where things really... Well, actually, technically, it was the buying of Star Wars by Disney that really started the shit show. And then their first project was Force Awakens. But here we are. So before we get started, though, I'm going to quickly address the chat, and then we're going to get into some little articles.
Nice.
All right, so we got Mr. Quentin Breitmeyer with a giraffe emoji.
A.K.A. Stinky.
We also got Kyle in the chat. He says, hey, Caleb, Carter, Michael, Danner, King of the Nation. Have an awesome stream tonight. Thank you, sir.
You know, you got to just get a ton of people on his one stream one time, so then Kyle can get in here and he'll say, hey, Caleb, Carter, Michael, Danner, King of the Nation, yada, 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 yada. And just go on and on and on. And it says, like, it just like the whole thing is just taken up of names. It'll just be so great.
It's going to be a very long stream. I mean, it's already going to be long as is. But anyway, Bacon's here. He says, General Caleb. Baconator. The Baconator. How you doing,
Pew,
man?
pew.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so we're going to look at... there was something I really want to show off. Okay, yeah, I'll show off this one here first. Give me 1 second. Where are you at? Oh, there it is. All right, so Microsoft will buy Activision Blizzard, betting $70 billion on the future of games.
Jeez.
So this is some pretty big news in the gaming world. I decided to put it on here because I did say that we would cover little miscellaneous topics that are related to pop culture. And Microsoft buying Activision, one of the biggest gaming companies in the world, it's a pretty big deal. And one of the first issues I have or concerns is the idea of monopolies. We saw this with Disney when they bought Star Wars. Disney has two of the most powerful franchises under their belt, that being the Marvel Cinematic Universe or the Marvel Universe and Star Wars. So now we see Microsoft, one of, arguably the biggest corporation for personal computers and gaming. They've made so many different games over the years, and now they have one of my favorite franchises being Call of Duty here. So here we are, and I'm trying to be optimistic because the whole thing with Call of Duty is like Call of Duty Vanguard really wasn't that good. It was very poorly received by most of the general audience, which is usually rare for COD games. There's always a divide in the fan base, but this time around, a lot more people are agreeing that Vanguard was crap, especially with the zombies mode. And being a zombies fan myself, just like Carter, we were really anticipating Call of Duty Vanguard Zombies, and when we hopped in on day one, it was bare bones, as if they had just come out with this new game mode that's fresh, and it was upsetting because
It was like Star Wars Battlefront 2 all over again.
Yeah, pretty much.
Ouch.
Yeah, and so
Hey, Star Wars Battlefront 2 though, they added a lot of stuff and they made it good towards the end.
Yeah.
Like towards the end, it was actually I played it and it was actually not bad. But
yeah, did you hear recently about the glitches that were going on with the game? The one health point glitch, where basically when players in a match would get in and they got their health down to 1 point, they couldn't die. So you literally couldn't play the game because people weren't dying. And it was usually done by one person that comes into the lobby with a hack, and then it affects everybody, even after the person leaves. So we did get word from EA or DICE that they're going to be making a fix sometime soon, but soon it's like, well,
they've kind of stopped. They've kind of stopped working on that game now. So
yeah, they have, and they went to go work on Battlefield 2042, and that game was a shit show, I heard.
Yeah.
So, and then yeah.
But talking about this deal though, I think that this is, first off, like you said, this is huge. Big deal. I'm someone who owns these Series X. I was a PlayStation guy with PlayStation 4, and Xbox has been making these decisions lately, whether it's buying Bethesda, whether it's buying Activision Blizzard, that is immensely helping their community. They already have Game Pass, which is one of the largest gaming streaming platforms ever. 25 million subscribers. It has a lot of people who are on Game Pass. And so this is just going to help them even more. And the way Xbox works is they are very much about inclusiveness. I will say that they are the ones that pushed for crossplay on a lot of games. Mm-hmm. They're the ones that push for a lot of this stuff. And so I feel like they're going to keep certain things, like maybe Overwatch and Call of Duty, they're probably going to keep those cross-platform because of how popular they are. But there will definitely be some exclusives, and that's what Xbox needs. They need, because PlayStation, while right now Xbox is maybe making the better business decisions, Xbox still doesn't have those same exclusives that PlayStation has. So I think that this will help to kind of give them more exclusives that will better benefit. Yeah, I cannot speak today. Benefit them in the long run. So
yeah. I think that one of the biggest mistakes that Microsoft could make is if they make, for example, Call of Duty Xbox exclusive, just because you have so many people that play Call of Duty on multiple platforms, not just Xbox/PC, but PlayStation is a very big market too. And now I did hear that they are planning on keeping Call of Duty for every platform, that it's not just going to go to Xbox exclusive. But things change, so only time will tell. And I was talking with Carter and with Bacon about this before, that if they decide to make Call of Duty Xbox exclusive, you're going to lose out on a shit ton of revenue, because the combined platforms of Xbox, PC, and PlayStation help to keep those games alive, even when the games were complete crap. So if you're gonna cut out one major market or system, it's going to hurt you financially. And I think they know that, and that's why, at least for now, they're not going to make Call of Duty Xbox exclusive.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what though, if Microsoft ever did that, not only are they going to lose out a bunch of money, they're gonna have a shit ton of protesters outside the conference.
Right.
It would also
Yeah.
help their console sales, though. I will say that, because people would be like a lot of this is going to help their console sales, because there's rumors that Elder Scrolls 6 might be Xbox exclusive, and
Yeah.
there's rumors on all this stuff now that people are going to be like, well, shit, I have to buy an Xbox, and they're going to want to go out and they're want to buy the new Xbox and get it, so then they have to play some of these games, and so that. If from a business standpoint, they should not make every game exclusive. I agree, Call of Duty should not be, but from a business perspective, you do want those exclusives that will entice the audience to buy your system.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You got anything to say on that, Danner?
No, not a whole lot. I'm a Nintendo guy. What the fuck does it mean to me?
Well,
Nice.
But
what
I know
was
about
it?
what's going on.
There was a which one was it? I think it was Call of Duty Black Ops that was on like a Nintendo DS at one point.
It was
Yeah,
Wii.
Yeah,
Wii.
It was
yeah.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah, I
That
remember.
was weird.
I remember because we had a friend of ours come over to my place and he would bring his Wii. He's like, "Hey guys, let's play Call of Duty Black Ops on the Wii." We all looked at each other like, "Eh," and the reason
It was not good on the Wii.
I mean, the graphics were bad. Like they were
Yeah,
very
they were
bad.
bad.
Yeah.
Hopelessly. It was like VR1, like VR1 style engine, like mechanics.
Yeah. But I will say this, that I did have some fun times on a Wii with a Godzilla game. And the reason why I actually have the game right now, but I don't have a Wii, funny enough, is because this particular Godzilla game was released for all platforms, but the Wii version had exclusive characters, which kind of ticked me off because I was a PlayStation guy. So I was thinking to myself, well, shit, Wii, why would you have these exclusive characters on your one platform that I don't have?
Well,
But I still have the game. And
Yeah,
one
well,
day I might find a Wii for a decent price. I might, pick it up and play this game. And it was really fun because you could really interact in this Godzilla game. Obviously, it's a Wii, so you interact anyway. But it was really fun because it's like you were doing the punching motions. You felt like you were in the monster.
You're in the fight.
Taking control. You're in the fight.
I don't know. I'm pissed at Nintendo after they are refusing to put Waluigi in Smash Bros. I want Waluigi.
Yeah.
Oh, come on. They gave us
I want
Banjo.
him as a character. I know, but but Waluigi is like a OG. He's one of the brothers, who started the Nintendo.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, to be
So
honest,
sad.
though, I was kind of expecting Sora to be part of Super Smash Brothers.
Who's this guy?
Hey,
Hello there,
whoa.
Bacon. What's going on?
What's up, guys?
Howdy.
So you wanted to join in on this little video game discussion?
I do. I want to discuss the video games.
Please do.
You like the video
Sweet.
games?
So you want to discuss Call of Duty? I saw that in the chat. You said that season 2 of Vanguard got delayed.
Yeah, I was looking up stuff today I was watching videos on it and stuff, and basically, and someone brought up a good point where it's a good possibility, right? It's a double-edged sword because on one end, if Xbox makes Call of Duty exclusive, obviously they're going to lose money from this, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But there's the side where it's probably going to make more people buy Xbox. But then there's the side of where people were like, "Oh fuck it, it's just Call of Duty,"
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know. I don't know. They made some good points today. They where they basically said it's more than likely it won't be for a long time, but people are saying that it's going to end up becoming an exclusive game to Xbox. It probably won't happen until like 2023 or 2024 because obviously deals like this take forever to finish, So it'll be a long time until it happens, but a lot of people are saying that Xbox is probably going to make it exclusive. PlayStation, Call of Duty, that is.
Yeah.
Which I've said this multiple times is it'll probably kill Warzone, horribly.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, because it used to be that zombies was the kind of go-to thing for Call of Duty that separated itself from, like Battlefield, for example. Obviously, Call of Duty and Battlefield, they have very different play styles and objectives and things like that. But zombies was a popular thing with Call of Duty.
Yeah.
And that's why most of the developers, that being Infinity Ward, Sledgehammer, they came out with their own version of zombies.
Right.
And it wasn't necessarily well received by the public, because it was a completely different story. It wasn't connected to the Treyarch zombie story.
Right.
But yeah.
I mean, I've seen people say, like, we all agree Vanguard was trash, still is trash. But, I mean, it's not like Call of Duty does this. Like, it's what Call of Duty is. Like, it's a franchise that goes up and down constantly. Like, you could look at the games, right?
Yeah.
Black Ops 2 was great. Modern Warfare 3 might not have been so great. Ghost wasn't that great. Advanced Warfare was all right. You know, so it's a constant fluctuating franchise.
Well, that's also because they do the stupid decision of releasing game year after year. Like, they should wait and take time on a game rather than wanting to release the next game next year and stuff that. Because then it's just they never have that time. And this, who knows? This acquisition with Microsoft might actually help them as far as quality goes.
That's what I was telling Caleb was if they make it exclusive, it's going to fuck up the cycle because the way Call of Duty works, for example, Cold War is what makes Vanguard. Vanguard is what's going to make the next game.
Yeah.
Right? So if it breaks and Call of Duty becomes exclusive, you're taking away half the profit towards another game. So it's going to, they might not have the budget to put it in a game every year, so they might have to build it up. I mean, there's still a chance that they keep Warzone cross-platform, third party, and then they just release future games separately from Warzone, you know, and make them exclusive.
And that's what they did, though, isn't it? Like, didn't Warzone come out with Modern Warfare?
Yeah, so when Modern Warfare launched, they dropped Warzone with it. Well, Battle Royale started with Black Ops 4.
Right, it was the Black
People
Ops.
didn't like Black Ops too much.
Yeah, but Warzone started with Modern Warfare.
And that's kind of was the origin of Warzone because people were like, this is okay, but it could be better. Because for one, Blackout was rushed because they were going to do a campaign for Black Ops 4, but then they caught on to the Battle Royale trend, and they're like, you know what, fuck the campaign. Fuck the campaign.
Right. Yeah.
Let's do Battle Royale real quick.
Now, this is
the war.
This is the war on pop culture. So I do want to mention something that is sort of, you know, goes into this Microsoft stuff, but it's also kind of political in the same
That's fine. Go right ahead.
Is that I'm wondering how they're going to handle the CEO of Activision Blizzard. Because I don't know if you guys have been hearing about this.
Yeah, the sexual harassment stuff.
Apparently, he's had a lot of sexual harassment accusations come out against him. And with this whole, that's been everyone's first thoughts, even beyond this Call of Duty exclusive. Everyone said, how are you going to handle this CEO? Are you going to fire him?
That's what I
What's
heard.
going to
That he
happen
was going to
there?
be removed.
So,
that's what I was hearing anyway.
Yeah. Like,
and who knows? Maybe the reason Activision sold was because how bad Vanguard's doing.
Yeah, plus the bad publicity with the sexual harassment. They were getting fired on from all corners, so they had to make a rush decision, and then this is what you get, Microsoft owning.
Yeah, not only that, Microsoft is a very fucking rich company, so the money's there. The money is there.
Spending almost 80 million, I think, right, on this deal, or was it?
It was
I was hearing it was 68 billion.
68 billion. Oh, jeez.
So,
holy shit.
Yeah, a lot of money.
And speaking of corporations, let's look at this next article that I found earlier today, or was it yesterday? I think it was yesterday, actually. Yeah. All right. So Sam Wilson to become Captain America again. Series will take identity politics global.
God damn it.
Marvel
Steve
Comics
Rogers is Captain America. Fuck off.
Yeah,
Marvel Comics announced that Sam Wilson will once again become Captain America after he relinquished the title back to Steve Rogers following the events of Hydra Empire. Now, I'll say this, that I have not been following these comics because every time I see this, right, I get turned off by it. It's like, this isn't Captain America. He's still got the freaking wings. This is Falcon wearing Captain America's suit.
Yeah.
Captain Tokenism.
Oh yeah.
It's Captain. They should just call it, like, if they're going to call it anything, call it Captain Falcon or something. Don't call it Captain America.
Oh, Nintendo may have something to say about that.
Mm-hmm. Captain. Yeah. Oh yeah, that's right. There is a character.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be surprising though, because are you guys familiar with the character Ironheart, who's supposed to be replacing Iron Man? Well, it turns out there was an Iron Man porn parody in Japan.
Oh my!
And they called it Ironheart.
Oh shit!
And it was released.
Where can I watch this?
I'll leave that
videos
to
on
you. You
Pornhub.
can just Google search it. Google is your
Okay.
friend. But
Cool.
the funny thing is that
I'll do some research after this.
This thing is, the thing is that this porn parody actually came out a few years ago. It came out before Disney decided to do their Ironheart thing. Now, that could be anything. It could just be a mere coincidence. But considering that Disney has a habit of taking things and just fucking them up or ripping from them, in the case of The Rise of Skywalker, and I'm pretty sure we're all familiar with that ending scene where the Emperor's firing his lightning at Rey, and he says, "I am all the Sith." And then she says, "And I am all the Jedi." Now, look, I don't know if self-plagiarism is a thing.
Oh, you got Danner walking away. He's just
Uh-oh.
he's
Got
pissed
something.
now.
I think he's got his. I think he has his. His.
God, I
his
hate that
support.
scene.
Well, hey, I don't know though. That scene I prefer more than "What's your name?" Ray Skywalker. It's like, oh my god!
Both are equally bad in their own
I
ways.
thought that's what you were talking about first.
No, but I mean, we'll get to that too
I
because
was like, oh.
she did not deserve that title.
That was
Usurped
fantasy
the
on
name of
Twitter.
Skywalker, and you know what the funny thing is? She buried the evidence in a desert.
Yep.
She buried that shit.
Anakin hates sand. How could you do that to Anakin?
Mhm.
Where Luke's family was murdered.
Well,
Yeah.
Isn't that funny? That's a
Yeah.
wonderful way to honor your sensei, your Jedi master.
Was he
But, you
really
know-
a sensei?
These articles where you have these things happening with these classic characters, and we talked about this before, but we always got to talk about it again because there's always some new shit happening. Having Marvel and even DC run out of ideas for characters, so they have to tokenize pre-existing ones to make their sale and to do whatever political motivations they want with these characters.
Batwoman.
Yes. You know what's really funny too? The new Batwoman in the CW thing. She's a
Oh, God.
tokenization of a tokenization. She's double tokenized.
Yep.
Isn't that
I
hilarious?
watched
Double-
like the first
double
episode
tokens.
of that, and that was all for me.
You are brave.
What did you guys think about the Moon Knight trailer?
Oh shit!
I'm
I haven't
Not
seen
even
that
interested.
yet.
Oh,
I mean, I never
yeah.
watched it,
Loved
but
it.
I mean, I'm pretty much just like done with Marvel. Spider-Man No Way Home was pretty much the end for me. I'm like, I'm not going to give these people my money anymore.
I'm excited
Sorry.
for it just because I'm a Marvel fan, though. But
and
I'm interested in
and
it.
I love the character of Midnight. You know, and
Mhm.
and
I don't know who that
mean,
is.
That one.
He's that
just-
one guy in a
just
giant white suit that runs around
Think-
Chicago.
Think of like Marvel's Batman in a way. I don't know. He seems a little bit like that. But because he's got like these things that look almost like batarangs that he uses as weapons and all that. So he's a really cool character. But anyways, yeah, this whole situation though with identity politics in our comics and our shows and such like that.
Movies, video games. I mean, just that opening video. You know,
Yeah.
I played it and I had the hashtag blah because it was utterly hilarious. I just thought about it. You know,
Yeah.
and it's not even me making fun of the way she looks, though that is a very big part of it. It's the shit that was coming out of her mouth. Talking about sexism, about how guys brag about jacking off to women. Like, I get that every guy has their locker room talk, but
Yeah.
I've never heard of how many times someone has jacked off to a certain woman. I've
Hey,
never heard that. I'm not.
if it makes her feel any better, I saw the way she looked, and I would not jack off to her. There are some women out there that I would definitely jack off to, but she's
Like
not
Pamela
one of them.
Anderson.
Nev Campbell. Oh God, my throat just hurt really bad.
Yes, that is one of them. But no, there is tokenization in like the comics world, and then there's things where never like I'm a fan of Wolverine. X-23 is a way of like doing it in a way right, because that was not a female Wolverine, that was another type of experiment.
Yeah, until they
it was,
actually
you
gave
know,
her the
they
title of
actually,
Wolverine and gave her the classic black or yellow and blue costume.
Yeah, I mean, they did do that.
They went that
initially,
far
so
in the end.
They do fuck it up in the end usually.
But you know what? You're absolutely
when
right,
it started
because
out, it's
not
like,
every
yeah.
tokenization is equal. You hear Eric
Yeah.
July say this all the time. He's a really big expert in the comic stuff, and he makes a good point that characters like She-Hulk and Batgirl were better handled compared to what's
Exactly.
happening these days. Especially what they did with She-Hulk. See, old time She-Hulk was better. They made a comic line for She-Hulk where they literally made her look just like the Hulk, but with a braided ponytail and like practically no chest. And she looked like a dude, but this is supposed to be She-Hulk. The thing about She-Hulk is that she was like the Hulk, but she was much more slim, much more feminine. And then they just jacked her up, you know?
Yeah.
Are you sure it's even a her anymore?
Yeah,
No,
good
it's
question.
not
Yeah.
they, them, Hulk.
And
Now,
here's an idea like joke as sort of a tokenization. The female Iron Man, or should it be called Iron Maiden?
Excellent.
Oh,
Hang on a minute. Before you say, oh my god, great, a tokenization of Iron Man. Nope, it is not tokenization. What if it was the daughter of Tony Stark who decided to honor her father's legacy?
that's what
Iron
Ironheart
They're
is.
still
Ironheart-
taking
Ironheart is Iron
they're
Man's
still
daughter.
taking the mantle of Iron Man, the similar armor.
Well,
It doesn't really matter
here's
the
here's
title,
the
because that's the thing. Look, they every time we talk about tokenization, I always hear about this idea of a mantle for Iron Man, a mantle for Batman, a mantle for Captain America. No, you cannot sit there and tell me that Batman is a fucking mantle. Batman, like Spider-Man, had a unique situation to him. He went through a lot of shit to get to where he was as Batman. He personally chose the symbol of the bat. You can't just sit there and tell me that it's a mantle because, anybody can be Batman. No, Bruce Wayne is Batman because that is the persona that he chose. Just like Spider-Man. Spider-Man chose that mantle, or not that fucking mantle. He chose that look. He chose that persona. That's who he is. That's who they are.
Yeah. I will say this though, that and I agree with you, but there is the level of where I think sometimes when they're trying to do this, it's trying to speak on how fandoms look at their superheroes. Like, for example, in Hawkeye, that is Kate Bishop. She's not trying to like necessarily be Hawkeye in the show. She knows she's not him yet, but she looks up to him. And he's like her inspiration. He's her inspiration, like sort of like, something like he saved her life. So he's like, or she saw him saving, New York during the whole aftermath that happened in the first Avengers. And she looked up to that. And then she started doing her own archery. She started doing stuff like that.
And she became the female Hawkeye.
But it's like,
they may not have her by name. They may not outright say that she's the new Hawkeye, but you take everything that you just had, and that is what Hawkeye is. He is the guy that he's with the bow. He's really good at espionage. You know who Hawkeye is. And again, I didn't watch the show because, again, after watching Loki and Falcon and Winter Soldier, I was pretty much checked out of Marvel TV shows. So I'm speaking on a limited perspective as far as Hawkeye goes, or WandaVision, for example. But with Hawkeye, they were focusing a lot more on Kate Bishop, which, if that's the show that they're developing, fine. But it has the name Hawkeye, so I'm thinking that it's going to be about Hawkeye. But it really wasn't. I mean, he was obviously in there because he has to be in there. But the story focused on the new, better Hawkeye, the one that can kick all the ass. In fact, I saw this similar thing in the latest episode of the Book of Boba Fett, where Fennec Shand, and there's no spoilers here, this is spoiler free, but Fennec Shand is kicking all kinds of ass, and she's not missing her shots. She's just perfect with her aim. And that's when we start getting into a little bit of Mary Sue territory or plot armor. It could be either one. But
she did tell Mando in season 2 of Mando, whenever they first meet, she said, and remember, I never miss. And that's one of her things that she talks about. That's fair. Misses
Let
a
me
shot.
add this then. Her physical combat with I don't know. Have you seen episode 4 of
I saw
or
it.
of Boba Fett?
Yeah.
How about you, Michael?
Yeah, I saw episode 4.
Okay, so she's throwing around guys that are twice her size, and this is something that I've seen a very big pattern of when
Yeah,
you have
that's
these female like spy thrillers where it's basically like James Bond but for women. Like the 355. The 355 I heard it was complete dog shit. I heard that Charlie's
yeah.
Angels was dog shit.
You're surprised?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. No,
I'm not
it's-
surprised because yes, it is just a movie, but even in movies, there's a certain set of rules that are unconsciously followed where certain things that would or wouldn't make sense.
Yeah.
You can't tell me that a 90-pound woman who looks very thin and fragile, I mean, she may be athletic, like she can run fast, but you're telling me that she's throwing around 300-pound men with ease? And that's what Fennec Shan started to do a little bit with, I think there was a Gamorrean guard involved. Other things involved. I was just taken out of it. I was like, okay, she's not experiencing like a very much turmoil or struggle whatsoever.
Yeah.
She's just nailing the shots and she's throwing these guys around. And then she gets that really nice shot at the end as the ship is leaving.
The issue is they don't have her they don't show scenes of her training or in combat or how she got to that point because it doesn't matter really like her weight class or anything like that as long as she's an experienced fighter or she's an experienced at her kind of
she's an assassin
job because
exactly
she's
a trained assassin.
So she's trained to be able to take down big guys like this and to be able to fight them.
Okay, I got a question for you. If that's the case, take everything you just said about her being a trained fighter and whatnot, and apply that to Boba Fett, the most legendary bounty hunter in the galaxy. What I have witnessed in these first 4 episodes, is that
they made him a dumb fuck.
This man is getting his ass kicked left and right. And you're telling me that this is the same bounty hunter that's renowned throughout the galaxy, that he is well known. There's a reason why he's the most legendary bounty hunter, in this new era of the Empire, after Revenge of the Sith and whatnot. And you're telling me that he's stupid enough to not use his jetpack when he's surrounded by these shields. By the way, they never said that his jetpack was damaged, so he literally just stayed there and taking those hits. Meanwhile, Fennec Shan, and hell, even the Gamorrean guards were kicking more ass than Boba Fett.
And
the character that this show is about.
Let's not forget that he also didn't use his jetpack, so we got a very slow chase scene in episode 3.
With the fucking space mopeds.
But yeah, no, that's bothered me because you come off of the amazing episode of Mandalorian in season 2, where you get Boba Fett kicking all sorts of ass, like probably some of the most violent Star Wars has ever gotten.
Oh yeah,
where he's bashing in skulls, he's like completely just wrecking shop.
Well, the Tusken Raiders taught him how to be a little bit more calm, I guess.
But if you look at chronologically, that takes place, after he's had his encounter with the Tusken Raiders, because he's because now he's over there meeting Mando, and then he gets his armor, and that's how that whole thing goes to play. So, like, I feel like they just completely changed what he was from season 2, episode 6, where he is completely kicking the shit out of all those guys.
Yeah,
to now just kind of being super slow and clunky and getting his ass kicked and not being tactical. Yeah.
Rusty's here in the chat. He says, "Is it bad that I've never bothered to watch anything but the original trilogy due to everything I've heard?" LOL.
No, probably a good idea.
No.
Yeah,
I would say that give the prequels a second chance
Yeah.
because they're not as bad as people say they are, and they're definitely not as bad as the sequel trilogy.
Yeah.
Because what you can say about the prequels is that they knew where they were going.
Yeah,
maybe the execution could have been done a hell of a lot better, but you know what?
Yeah.
George Lucas didn't go out and say that the fans are toxic, racist, sexist, blah 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 blah. Obviously, he was probably pissed off at people reacting the way they were. For sure, anybody would.
Yeah.
With that said, he didn't go out and attack people like Ryan Johnson did, for example.
Fuck that guy.
At least George Lucas admitted when he made mistakes. Like, he got that famous clip, like when they streamed Phantom Menace, where he, quote, said, may have gone too far in a few places.
Yeah,
at least he admitted it.
Like he admitted the whole like overuse of Jar Jar and that whole thing, and being all like, yeah, that was a mistake on my part. And he admitted to that whole thing of Jar Jar and that whole like 3 arc storyline that they've had for him, 3 movie storyline. So yeah. But
I'll take abused.
I'll take Jar Jar over many of the characters in the sequel trilogy.
You know what? You know what I've always said. So this is what I've always said. I and this is someone who I do not like the sequel trilogy, or other than Force Awakens, but I will say that the prequel trilogy are poorly directed movies with amazing lore. And then the sequel trilogy is the opposite, where they're very well directed movies with shit lore. Is what I say. So
what I could say is it's more like no lore, because we don't get very much. I mean, you get the Force Awakens, and you're telling me that okay, you have this new empire that's magically there. 30 years have passed, and the New Republic hasn't done anything about these guys, and they have a new Death Star that is leagues bigger than the first 2, and nobody's found this out. Nobody's warned the New Republic, and then the New Republic gets destroyed all in one shot.
Yeah,
there goes your lore.
Only piece of lore building that we got in the sequel trilogy was force projection, because that was something that's never been done before, and that was the only thing that like was introduced that was like big.
Oh, and force healing
in Star Wars. But force healing, I think we've had though beforehand.
Well,
right?
let me put it to you this
not
way.
in the movies, though.
Yeah, not in the movies. In the comics, yes. But the thing is that you didn't hear much about it, because if you think about how it was used in The Rise of Skywalker, it literally could heal, life-threatening wounds. So, the problem with adding in this new force power so late in the game is that you start to question pretty much everything that you've witnessed in regards for people being killed. The first big one is Qui-Gon Jinn, because he got stabbed in the stomach just like Kylo did, yet Rey healed him.
Yeah.
Okay, so you begin to cheapen the death when you literally can put out a magical bullshit device, aka force healing. And look, force healing in concept makes some sense, but you never establish rules about it. Rey literally just did it. She just did it.
Well, to be fair, I mean, I'm not trying to say you're wrong, but even the Phantom Menace with Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, they just force speed out of there, like just
No, you're right.
Where did this come from?
Yeah.
Why didn't Obi-Wan use it during the Darth Maul fight?
Yeah. See, little inconsistencies.
Yeah, that's. I mean, the prequels are definitely, especially 1 and 2, are still, they're better than the majority of the sequels that we've gotten, but they still have a handful of issues to them that make them
absolutely
not great. So,
okay, so before we continue going into Star Wars, I want to go ahead and talk about what is on the screen right now: gatekeeper or gatekeeping. So, according to Merriam-Webster, gatekeeper, one that tends or guards a gate, a person who controls access. Now, another one I'm going to go to is the Urban Dictionary. Since a lot of people love using the Urban Dictionary, let's see what they have to say about it. Gatekeeping, when someone takes it upon themselves to decide who does or does not have access or rights to a community or identity. Now, the reason why I want to talk about this is in relation to the freaky chick from the beginning. So you've heard me criticize, or you've heard us criticize Marvel, DC, Star Wars, Doctor Who, many other franchises because they let identity politics into that space. Hollywood is full of them, and birds of a feather flock together.
Bullshit.
So,
yeah,
gatekeeping, good and the bad. obviously you don't want to just restrict access to people who want to come in and enjoy something. And this is something that I'm going to heavily preface on as my comic series continues to develop, is that my comic series can be for anyone, but it is not for everyone. Now, if you're confused, let me explain. My comic series can be enjoyed by any person that wants to come enjoy it. I'm not going to restrict access to people who may not think like me, but they like what I have put out. Okay. With that said, there's going to be things in my comic series that people won't like. Hence the reason why I say it's not for everyone, but it can be for anyone who wants to come in. So in that case, gatekeeping, you hear about, for example, Gamergate. That was a big thing a few years ago. And looking back now, I can see why people were really protective of their groups, their cliques, their franchises that they were involved in. I can see why they were wanting to restrict access, because look what happened. Marvel and DC are going down the shitter in regards for comic books, and they're only really relying on films because more people watch movies and TV shows rather than read comic books. So you get characters that you've never heard of in these films because they came from the comics. You have a comic adaptation. And so you bring these new characters or these characters you've never heard of to the limelight, and so suddenly they get popular. And then people decide to start taking advantage of the hype. And they start, chattering on about representation, diversity and inclusion, all these buzz terms that we've heard a trillion times. And look how things have downgraded so much.
Yeah.
Now, I think everyone here can agree that diversity isn't a problem. It's just forced diversity. When diversity doesn't come naturally, as in, if I create a character in my comic series who's a black guy, I'm not going to heavily emphasize on the fact that he's a black guy. I'm going to merely say, hey, this is another character in my comic book series. You might like him, you might not like him. There might be some things that you find cool about him, other things that you might not. But here he is. He is a new character in my series. But I'm not going to be promoting the fact that, oh my God, I got a black guy in my series.
So progressive.
Yeah.
So stunning.
Same with like, gay or lesbian or whatever that is. If that's like, if you wanted to, that even that stuff can come naturally too. If you don't have to be like, throw it in your face and be like, oh, look, guys, it's a gay person or it's a lesbian or.
And at the same time, here's one for you. At the same time, I don't have to have all those people in there, people with diverse backgrounds. You know why? Because when Black Panther came out, it was being praised as this legendary film that was promoting, diversity and getting black representation. And if it was going to have a majority of black people, or if there was only going to be black people in that movie, I wouldn't have had a problem with it. You know why? Because in the lore of the story, in Wakanda, they're all black.
Exactly.
There's no complaints about it. So when you have the Lord of the Rings, for example, that doesn't have any black people or Asian people or anything like that, that's not problematic because the story is set in an area where there is less black people, Asian people, or any non-white people. They're not there. The same thing if you were going to be doing Norse mythology, the Norsemen, they're fucking white as shit. I don't expect there to be Asian characters. I like Idris Elba. He's a great actor, but why the fuck is he Heimdall? Why is he Heimdall? Why Heimdall is supposed to be a white guy? But remember, if you say anything like this, then you have some kind of problem with representation. They'll call you racist for not celebrating, black casting of a character.
The people who throw those accusations are projecting. They're the ones who only see skin color and gender and all that shit. They just project it onto you and call you the terrible person. When they themselves should just take a good look in the mirror, because there's more to diversity than just simply skin color and gender. It's context of character that we want to be so diverse in stories.
And another thing too is I honestly feel it's disrespectful to the community when you're trying to say like, oh, look, I'm taking this character that's so beloved and I'm making them black or I'm making them Asian. To me, it's actually more beneficial to that community whenever you are actually making a new character that is strong, that is powerful, that is, you know, their own thing, and you're saying, and it's a black person or an Asian person or something like that. I feel like that's even more respectful than to not only us but the fans, but to that community.
Well, to put it bluntly, whenever you give an original black character who had his own story, when you give him the shield and the title of Captain America, you're giving that man the sloppy seconds.
Yep.
Because the name and shield of Captain America has a legacy spanning many, many years.
All the way back to World War II.
And you know what? So does Falcon. Falcon was one of the first original black heroes in Marvel. And then you bring him into this new era and you give him a demotion. People might say, oh, no, it's progressive to give him the shield of Captain America, to call him the new Captain America. Okay, but how? How is it? Because Captain America is pretty much out of the story, right? I mean, he's old now. He probably passed away, and that's it.
Yeah.
Then you have Falcon, who's still alive, and he's fine.
Yeah,
you don't need to bring back these characters. You just bring in your plethora of new characters that you haven't even used that are in your comics. Give them comic adaptations.
Yeah. It's sort of like, you know, because there's some, you know, talking as a nerd, there's probably some people out there who are all like, oh, but what are you going to do with Captain America going forward? You don't bring him at all in there. I'm the same way with Wolverine. Is my favorite superhero of all time, period, point blank. I know you and I both share that sentiment, Caleb.
Yep.
But after I watched Logan, I said, okay, good. I'm done with the character. Don't bring him back in the movies. I don't need to see this again. I'm like, I don't want to see him recast. I don't want to see anything. I'm like, I'm now done with Wolverine. Focus on new characters. And that's how I want. And that's
don't make her like her father. Make her different. I mean, yeah, she has the healing factor. She's got the claws, but you can make her a completely different character. Don't give her the classic costume. Let her have her own identity.
Yeah, and I feel like, you know, because she was her own personality in Logan. She did really. So I feel like you know, they could have gone that route if Fox continued, but to me, I was all like, I was done with that character. Same with Iron Man. You know, I'm like, I don't want him back. I don't want anyone to be recast. I don't want anything like that to ever happen. That I'm like, I'm just done with Iron Man. His arc was perfect. It ended, and I'm like the same. And I'm like the same way with Captain America. I don't need anyone. Not Bucky. I know some people are like, well, Bucky should be Cap. No, I don't even want Bucky either. I'm like,
you just leave Captain America alone.
Just leave him completely alone. Just do your own thing now. Don't even focus on that character anymore.
I hate to quote Kylo Ren, but let the past die.
Yeah.
And then he said, "Kill it if you have to."
No, you don't kill it. Just let it die.
Just let it go. You know, and you remember the history.
Yep, or in the words of the Ninth Doctor.
He was thinking about his daddy with that comment.
The fuck?
Yeah, he was.
or in the words of the Ninth Doctor, let the TARDIS die. Let the Thing stand on the corner.
What the hell is this about killing dads?
Let the world moves on.
You know what?
You know, just like that though, like the Ninth Doctor.
I guess you could say he felt a lot of gratitude for his dad.
Oh yeah.
If you guys at all get that reference.
I guess that was probably one of the most epic deaths in Star Wars, right? I don't think I've ever seen anything.
I felt like a big fuck you, though.
Yeah.
Well, let's go ahead and talk about Star Wars then.
Because I was making a joke on the whole, like, apparently when Rey and Kylo kissed, apparently there was this book, like this, that was off of Rise of Skywalker, like a thing talking about it that said apparently they've considered that now a kiss of gratitude. When they kiss at the end, and so that's why I was like,
you know, usually when you have like a kiss of gratitude, it's usually like a kiss on the cheek or a kiss on the hand. You know, kind of like how the old English did it. You know, they would kiss the woman's hand, you know, out of respect, right? You know, those customs. You know,
gentlemen.
But you know, it's like they.
I don't make out with a person when I thank them. I'm not like, hey, you know, come here. I want to freaking eat your face off. No, thank you for what you just did. Now you go your merry way. That's not what I do whenever I am kissing someone on the mouth. No. That's really dumb.
Yep. Also, another thing.
Let's talk about the sequel trilogy.
Yes. Now,
one of the cruxes of this entire stream, because we're going to start with Force Awakens, and I know that a lot of people, including myself, was hyped.
I was
for the
hyped
Force
too.
Awakens.
Who wasn't though?
And I'm probably maybe the only, fan in this stream of Force Awakens, but
maybe, but I might convince you otherwise. You start looking at certain things. Then again, I've said this before, where it's okay to like bad movies. For example, X-Men Origins Wolverine. It is a terrible Wolverine movie. With that said, I still enjoy watching it because it's Hugh Jackman kicking ass as Wolverine, and for me, that never gets old. But you'll never hear me say that this is a good X-Men film, because it wasn't. It had a load of continuity problems. The story,
you're telling me you didn't like Deadpool in it? Come on.
Oh, you mean Baraka Pool? Yeah, he was cool. Baraka Pool was cool, but I was expecting the real Deadpool to show up, and which he did in Deadpool 2, right? In the end credits, he popped in, shot the guy in the head. He's like, "Oh, sorry."
Oh, what? Finally found a way to you up. That gave me a chuckle.
But yeah. So, Force Awakens. At that point, before it was released, we hadn't seen a Star Wars movie in 10 years. It had been 10 years since Revenge of the Sith, unless you want to count that animated movie for Star Wars Clone Wars that promoted the show, and that was kind of
no.
Yeah, I'd say that the show was better. It got better in the later seasons, but other than that, we hadn't seen a Star Wars movie in 10 years.
Yeah,
and the first thing we get the trailer. You get that nostalgia building up inside your little ass, and you just get super excited because Chewie, we're home. Now, if that isn't the biggest dose of nostalgia bait,
along with
I don't know what is.
Yeah.
Because they were promoting the living daylights out of seeing the original characters come back. And we all knew that this was also going to introduce new characters, because that's what you do. You introduce new characters that we can get invested in, and you create an entire new trilogy, and then you get a profit off of it, as long as you do it good.
Exactly.
But one of the first problems that I have with the movie is Luke Skywalker has vanished.
Where did he go?
Yeah.
Like
now as far as nostalgia bait goes, like it made sense for marketing to advertise a lot of like Han Solo and stuff like that, because that's what's going to get butts in seats whenever they see like those returning characters and all that stuff. Like, to me, I personally feel like, now my mind has probably changed because my theater reaction, but at the time I was saying it was probably smart to show Toby and Andrew in the trailer, because if you did that, people would be like, oh, tickets available now? Okay, I'm ordering them right now. Like, they would have been on there, they would have been ordering them super fast. So to me, I feel like when you're throwing stuff like that in the trailer, it makes complete sense. But I've heard about the whole rehashing of A New Hope and stuff.
It's fair.
But to me, I feel like what they were doing is they were giving audiences newer audience, giving the older audiences what we loved, but also giving newer audiences at the same time what we loved, and kind of introducing newer audiences in a way to what was probably one of the best Star Wars movies in A New Hope, and kind of making that kind of, I don't know the word for it, but kind of starting out with like an homage to that, and then they were gonna probably do their own thing later on.
See, I would have believed that just fine. Yeah. The problem is that you don't just merely rip off scenes from the original just to get people involved with remembering the original trilogy, because that's not what the prequels did. The prequels, and arguably, it was made by George Lucas, so he had a mindset, okay, and he knew what he was going to do with it. The problem with the sequel trilogy, and this is from Kathleen Kennedy's own mouth, she said that they had no source material to reference when making the sequel trilogy. Now, we know that she's full of shit for multiple reasons. One reason, because we all know about the expanding universe. It was arguably what was keeping Star Wars alive until The Phantom Menace. Two, the characters that they made were carbon copies, in some cases, of characters from the expanded universe. For example, Kylo Ren. Kylo Ren was a mixture of Jason Solo and Ben Skywalker. One of them being that it was Han's son who turned to the dark side. And it would have been easier just to say, all right, we're taking from the expanded universe and creating a new story. And for that, I can say, all right, let's see what you got. But instead, they only took parts of the expanded universe, and then the rest they made with the original trilogy. Hence the reason why you see the Star Destroyer flying over the moon, very similar to A New Hope, that opening scene. Obviously, it's a different angle, but it's the same thing. And then you get onto a desert planet, and the new Empire, is looking for a droid that has very important intel. Okay, you can see this. You can see the parallel with A New Hope. R2 and C-3PO, they're down in Tatooine. BB-8 has the map to Luke Skywalker. Which, by the way, why did Luke Skywalker have a map to his location?
Yeah,
and it's such a random place too. Like, I mean, it's completely random that they did that. Yeah. I don't know about you guys, but because especially with the context of The Last Jedi, he said that he went to the most unfindable location in the galaxy just so he could, die or whatever. Okay, then if that's the case, why the fuck do you have a map going to that location?
Yeah, I mean, it's like
burning expectations. That's what we're doing.
Yeah, it's burning my expectations. All right, I didn't expect Luke Skywalker to grab his father's lightsaber and chuck the bitch intentionally. Now, I watched a YouTuber that broke down The Last Jedi.
Now that was in The Last Jedi. That was not The Force Awakens.
Yes, I know, but I know we're getting off track. But this is important to mention because it's relevant to somewhat relevant to The Force Awakens. But in The Last Jedi, if Luke were to have held the lightsaber, looked at Rey, looked down the lightsaber, and let it drop from his hands, and then walk away, that would be a very different approach to the approach that we actually got, which is him deliberately chucking the lightsaber away. That was the first big issue. And the reason why that's all relevant, why I said that, is because Luke Skywalker, aside from his little cameo at the end of the film, he gets nothing. Zero. We get all this talk about Luke Skywalker, but he doesn't show up until the end of the movie, and we know what happens. And you can't sit there and tell me, well, it's a different vision, different directors doing different things. That's why you have a plan, which they clearly did in certain cases. They had a plan. They had to have come up with a plan. They're Disney. They're Lucasfilm. They're getting all this funding. They have a plethora of resources in the expanded universe, which they used.
Even though you'll hear that, apparently Daisy Ridley had no idea what was going on set, and John Boyega had no idea what was going on set. She said she thought she was a Kenobi this whole time. She didn't even know that, she was going to be a Emperor Palpatine's granddaughter until the day they were shooting that scene. She's like, what? And so it's like they had no planning of that trilogy. So
they did not. But what the?
Xbox posted this McDonald's themed Xbox.
Oh my god!
Trying to acquire me too. They can just send that to me. Anyway,
sorry.
Go ahead, Carter.
Sorry, it's just that not to mention though that it's basically The Force Awakens just straight up self-plagiarized itself though.
Mm-hmm. I got you.
And I just don't understand though that and I like how there are some moments in there that are really, even though they're nostalgia baiting, but there are some just moments in there. But there are I just don't understand though the First Order shouldn't it still be called the Empire? Because if you know that after the Battle of Endor, the Empire has fallen, but the Empire is still out there though, but it's just expanded because they are either in hiding or they're trying to continue. It's just let me tell you something though. How many of you have studied in history, have learned about World War II? How many of you?
I mean, I took history class. We studied about World War II.
Okay, Yeah, well, here's the thing, though. That's just the thing, though. This is like the Empire, though, or it's like Nazi Germany, though. When Berlin was being invaded by the Americans, the Russians, and the French Resistance, and they realized that, oh no, like it's all over. What do we do? Like even the Führer himself decided to that some Nazis even escaped the war, decided to hide in Brazil. That's basically what the Empire was doing, though, just hiding out, though, and trying to continue with work, though. It should have been called like the Shattered Empire or something like that, though, like remnants of the old empire, because what's up?
Oh, well, like you just said there, remnant, because in the Jedi Knight series, that's what they call it, the Imperial Remnants. So,
Right.
there it is, right on the table, right there for you. But First Order, what the fuck does that even mean?
Yeah, and it makes sense that
it's not
after
the second order, it's the first.
And it makes sense that that there are still remnants of the Empire because they were spread across the entire galaxy. It makes sense that after the destruction of the first Death Star, that the Empire was still around because their entire operation wasn't based on just one battle station. It was spread across the galaxy. So if the Empire Strikes Back opened up with, oh, the Empire is now on the run because their big weapon was destroyed, it wouldn't have made a lot of sense because we know, based on dialogue in the film, that they are spread across the galaxy. They had an iron grip on the galaxy.
Like the Nazis did in Europe.
Speaking of Empire, I found like an inconsistency when I rewatched that episode of Mandalorian. Boba Fett is, he's flying up, he sees the Imperial Star Destroyer, and he's like, the Empire, they're back, and all this stuff. And I'm like, the Empire for him would have never been gone because he supposedly died when inside the Sarlacc pit when the Empire was still around.
Right.
So whenever he would have gotten out, the Empire, he would have still been used to the Empire being there. So I was like, why would he all of a sudden be like, the Empire, they're back, and he like looks all kind of shocked that they're back.
Well,
I always thought that was kind of
I think that one explanation could be that in his time on Tatooine, you remember in episode 4 when he was riding on the Bantha and he saw those spikes with the stormtrooper helmets. There could have been a moment in the episode which we don't see that it's like, okay, what happens to the Empire, and then somebody tells them. You're essentially writing the story for these people when I say what I say, but that's the only way to really rationalize it. But you're absolutely right. When Boba Fett says that, it's kind of like, well, how the hell does he know? Because from what we saw, he was stuck with the Sand People for an extended period of time, and there's no way that they would have known.
Yeah, and not to mention he was in the Sarlacc pit, though, so he couldn't have been up to date.
I mean, but the thing is, though, is they never gave us that scene that kind of told us that like he knew that the Empire was back. I'm like, if they would have given us that, then I would have been like, oh, okay, then that inconsistency now makes sense.
Right.
So, but they never gave us that. So
So back to The Force Awakens. I know we kind of got off, but another thing, yeah,
it's all Star Wars. So as long as we get off track and as long as it's still Star Wars related.
And the Empire's and the First Order's colors, though, black and red and white. Why do they get the feeling they got the inspiration of Inferno Squadron?
Maybe, but one of the other problems with the First Order is how well advanced they are. Like, we're supposed to believe that this is supposed to be the remnants of the Empire. A bulk of their forces were destroyed. You lost the Emperor, you lost Darth Vader, you lost your second Death Star. And you're telling me that this First Order
lost the Emperor. Sorry.
Yeah. Which is another stupid thing we'll talk about. But this First Order is extremely well equipped. They have shiny armor. They got shiny new ships. I mean, they look pretty clean. They look like how the Empire was in A New Hope. That's one of the big problems I have with this film, is that when we get into this film, it feels like we're back in A New Hope, where the New Republic is separate from the Resistance. Okay?
Are they really?
Yeah, good question. Because shouldn't they be the same? Because the New Republic are the good guys. The First Order are the bad guys. This isn't like A New Hope, where you had the Empire that had control of the central governments. You had, what was I going to say? Okay, you had the Empire have a hold on the galaxy. They had control of the governments. They were widespread. The rebellion was on the run. They were a ragtag group of survivors. We get to the First Order and the Resistance. That's the exact same thing. It's the exact same thing. The problem is that the Resistance is supposed to be funded by the Republic. So the question is, why isn't it the New Republic versus this new Empire? Why is it that the New Republic isn't fully supporting the Resistance? Why is it that they haven't taken care of the First Order? And of course, this is all before we know about Starkiller Base. We don't know if Starkiller Base exists. Now, I know that in some expanded lore as the years went along, they were explaining like, oh, it turns out that the Emperor had been on the planet that is now Starkiller Base, and he had been there for a while or had operations going on that was building the super weapon. The problem is that even in Star Wars, I can't buy that realistically. No. Because that thing is fucking huge. Okay, the Death Star in and of itself was huge. Okay, but this Starkiller Base is way bigger. So
it's
how
like the fucking size of Jupiter, for fuck's sake.
And it has a giant Death Star cannon thing that can destroy multiple planets with one shot. Definition of overpowered.
No. And not to mention it's using the power of the sun, like solar power death ray.
And you know, and even as someone who, you know, is still a fan of the movie, I thought that was definitely a weird and kind of useless choice is to make another Death Star. We've had like 3 or 4 different Death Stars throughout this franchise, and they're like, "Oh, you know, what is the ultimate super weapon that will, you know, make all the fans happy? Let's make another Death Star, just with a different name and bigger." And yeah, it was.
You know how they could have mitigated that whole situation? They could have had it to where Starkiller Base doesn't get destroyed in the first fucking movie. They could have had it be a constant threat throughout the entire trilogy. You could have that as their home base. And the reason why the Resistance wouldn't attack it is because it's heavily guarded. On top of that, it has a giant fucking Death Star cannon. So that would sort of push off anybody that would try and attack the base. But what we got in the end was that Starkiller Base was easily destroyed as the 2 Death Stars. It was easy, but yet it's supposed to be bigger, more advanced. All these things. And that makes it very hard for me to get invested in the story. When the thing that we're supposed to be afraid of can be destroyed just as easily as the very first one. And this is supposed to be in the future. So you would think that the technology and their security would have been buffed. Is that fair?
Yeah. Even in execution, you know, it's really fucking sad for if you're looking at between New Hope and Force Awakens, between both bases. The much bigger one, when it blows up, you're just kind of like, whatever. But when the Death Star blows up, it's just like, yeah, you fucking did it.
Right.
There's just so much more excitement, and no one cared about Starkiller Base because it's just another Death Star. They could have tried something new because, like, I hate to jump all the way to Rise of Skywalker, but that whole shit with like all the Star Destroyers with the firing power of the fucking Death Star, it's like, could you have tried something else? Like, I don't know, maybe the remnants of the Star Forge, bring in a little bit of that Knights of the Old Republic lore into this.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, the station that uses the power of a star, which the First Order does have experience with Starkiller Base. Right. Why not try something with that? But no, just fucking Death Stars. There's 4 Death Stars in total in the grand scheme of things. 4. I mean, besides all the Star Destroyers, but 4 in total.
2 things. One, only way I would have cared about the Starkiller Base is if they would have actually brought this man back into canon and they would have like had Starkiller on that Starkiller Base or had it named after Starkiller. That would have been cool.
Yeah,
something like that if they introduced, you know, that character back into canon.
Sorry to interrupt, but a fun fact that Luke Skywalker's originally was the Starkiller.
Yeah, and speaking of, by the way, I'm just because we're talking about Force Awakens, and I have it playing on in the background right now, and have the credit scroll on, and you can tell that Rian Johnson messed up because it literally says in the credit scroll that the ashes of the Empire will not rest until Skywalker, the Last Jedi. like he says in the movie, he's like, I will not be the last Jedi, and but it's they advertise Skywalker as the last Jedi. It's really right there in the Force Awakens credit scroll. So
okay, I know we've been shitting on this film a lot, but I want to talk about some things that I actually liked up to a certain point. The introduction of Rey was almost perfect.
Yeah,
you had introduction of a new character. You were getting to know her. I know that there's a lot of parallels to Luke Skywalker, which that sort of bothers me even now. But they had a good introduction, and Rey's theme is beautiful. It's a very beautiful thing. I love it. John Williams did a fantastic job.
Isn't it Leia's theme backwards or something like that? That I heard. I heard it was like something like that. Like it's actually in reverse, Leia's theme or something like that. Which
I did hear about that a long time ago. That there was something. It was something to do with Leia's theme. But so Rey had so much potential, and none of the problems I have with her have to do with the fact that she's a woman. I shouldn't have to say this, but just in case people are watching that want to accuse us of being whatever the fuck, the problem is not with her being a woman. Because funny thing is that most of the time when I play games and I have the ability to create a character, I usually play as a female character. I create my own female character. In fact, my own comic series, the main character is a female. So I don't have a problem with female leads. My problem is that it gets up to a certain point where she starts doing things that she shouldn't be able to do.
Yeah.
Where she does things that have very little explanation. For example, being able to pilot the Millennium Falcon. Okay. Now, in fairness, we don't know a lot about her. We don't know what kind of experience that she has, to be fair. At the same time, she's pulling off maneuvers that are really tricky, that somebody with limited experience with starships probably couldn't pull off unless you're an expert. Like the moves that she made flying the Millennium Falcon through the downed Star Destroyers, that's something that I feel like Poe could have done fairly easily, because Poe is the greatest pilot in the Resistance, which, by the way, he disappears too for a while.
Yeah, Poe is kind of, other than The Last Jedi, Poe is kind of wasted in the trilogy, unfortunately. But,
Yeah. And so I'm sitting here watching Rey do these amazing things. I'm thinking to myself, okay, how is she doing these things? And as we get along in the story, we find that she has some Force abilities. Now, it's very true that you don't need to be the chosen one to have great powers in the Force. The funny thing about Anakin, and people like to compare Anakin and Rey and how, Anakin was a Mary Sue too.
Chosen one. Oh, sorry.
They said that Anakin was a Mary Sue too. If going off of the logic for Rey, and no, he's not, because he pulled off some weird shit in the Phantom Menace. But if I recall properly, he got his ass kicked many times. He
fucked up a lot.
Yes, he got his arm chopped off, then he got his other arm chopped off, and his legs, and he was burned in lava because he lost Obi-Wan because of the high ground. Hello there.
How about the fucking conveyor belt scene in Attack of the Clones? He's fucking trapped in there, and his lightsaber's broken. Like,
not again.
So perfect.
But I was able to let it kind of slide a bit in the first film because I was expecting the second film to kind of go more into explaining why she has Force abilities, to explaining all that, and kind of going more into it because Abrams. The problem is they tried to do what the classic Star Wars trilogy did, where every film had a different director, and they were trying to go that route. And if they would have stuck the whole way through with JJ's vision, he probably may have explained more stuff like that in The Last Jedi. That would have given us, more context for her character.
The problem with Rey and her abilities, and I was in your boat, Michael. When I first saw this film, I thought it was kind of weird that she was able to do all these things and win her first lightsaber fight, even though she hadn't had any training from a Jedi, versus someone who had training from two powerful masters in Snoke and Luke. I thought it was kind of weird, but I was like, you know what? If they explain that she's got like a powerful ancestor, then maybe I can buy it. Yeah. But I'm going to backtrack on that because Anakin is the crowning example of how that's bullshit. Because Anakin was the chosen one, the one that was said to bring balance to the Force, to destroy the Sith. So this guy is supposed to be uber powerful, but he still needed training. And Rey didn't go through much training. Of course, in the Rise of Skywalker, oh, look at me, I'm training now. You know, I'm floating in midair, you know, trying to pull like a Yoda or some shit like that. You know, it's like, you know what? This doesn't satisfy me. It's like, oh, look, we get a couple scenes of training, but she's still overpowered. She's still a Mary Sue.
And here's the deal with The Force Awakens, though, is that in The Force Awakens, that fight, granted, was going to be in her favor no matter what, because at that, and the reason why is because at that time, Kylo Ren's head is not in the right headspace. He just killed his father. He's feeling weak internally and externally. He just freaking, those things I heard should like kill you. Chewbacca's like bolt, his little bolt blasters. Like I've heard those things when they impact you in Star Wars, like you're dead. Like the fact that he's alive is like something amazing, because like he would almost not be able to stand up. And so the fact that he's able to even stand up and fight her is, you know, is a skill all on his own. And so I feel like in that fight scene, I was okay with her having the upper hand, because in that moment, he's extremely weak from just getting shot and from just having killed his father. So
at the same time, all those things fuel the dark side. Pain, loss, the fact that he murdered his father, that is an ascension. When you do something like that, that's what elevates your power in the dark side, because that's what happened with Anakin. When he lost his mother, what did he do? He slaughtered those fucking Tusken Raiders, and there were a shit ton of them. Granted, he's a Jedi, so he has the training to be able to take on multiple fighters, but he fucked up everybody in that camp.
So he went John Wick on their ass.
And the thing with Kylo Ren is that, and Rey in that fight, is that you don't, if you're trying to get your character to go through trials and tribulation, or if you're trying to get a character to be likable or something that you can relate to, you don't have her win in the very first fight of your trilogy. And then you also don't have her continue to win every other fight in the trilogy up to the point where she lost Kylo Ren, which they only had to do. They had to do it because people were complaining, and it was getting enough traction, because when you start making similarities and to Anakin, okay, Anakin was the chosen one. He's the all-powerful Jedi that would bring balance to the Force, but he got his ass kicked. Okay. Yep. And you struggled with him because this is a character you're supposed to root for. So seeing them fall, seeing them fail, you get invested in the character. Like, you know what? Come on, Anakin, you can do this. You can get up. You can be that chosen one. With Rey, that doesn't happen. Yeah, she gets a little arm cut in The Last Jedi, but after Holdo pulls her suicide maneuver, where the fuck did she go? She's just gone. She left Kylo there, and then she's just gone. I know we're getting into The Last Jedi, but my overall point in saying all that is Rey in this film had a great start in the beginning of the movie. Everything after that, it just went downhill, and it only got worse with The Last Jedi.
And hey, she technically didn't win every fight in the sequel trilogy. If you want to go by the first fight in Rise of Skywalker that she had with the Emperor, she died. But then they had that bullshit thing of, you know,
Kylo pulling off the magical healing bullshit.
Kylo Ren, you know, his mom has injected herself into him, and now, you know, he's now kind of Leia's spirit inside of him. Whatever.
Oh, and then he dies
bullshit was.
After their kiss, ironically enough.
Yeah.
Like what?
Yeah. So then she wins, but she did lose the first time she fought the Emperor.
A little too late though. A little too late, though. You're in your trilogy, and now she just loses things. And again, they're doing all of this. They're giving us all this in the last film because, one, this is the last film. And two, people made enough of a stink about it. And Rian Johnson was running his big-ass mouth talking about sexist and racist fans, which I find hilarious, by the way. I find utterly hilarious because it's like, you know what? I don't think anybody here had a problem with, like, Lando or Mace Windu. You know, hell. Freaking Tamora Morrison, Jango Fett. He's not a white guy. He's from, like, he was born in New Zealand, but he has ties to the Pacific Islands. And I was watching some behind-the-scenes footage of Mandalorian when they had Boba Fett there, and he was explaining, like, he was trying to get certain fighting techniques and rituals from his home to do for Boba Fett to do. And you know what? That's not a white guy. We never had a problem with him. I know that a lot of people don't like Attack of the Clones for multiple reasons, but it had nothing to do with Jango Fett being who he was, the color of his skin. So this idea, once again, of the racist or sexist thing,
Well,
you know,
because we
it's
never get to. Well, it's because the reason why we. Well, it's because the reason why we never saw Boba Fett without his armor or Jango Fett without his armor. I'm sorry, it's just the reason why it was like a shroud of mystery though to Boba Fett though that we never see him without his helmet. Though. And
yeah,
that's,
Boba Fett, yeah. And here's the funny thing for you. What was it? An interview came out with Tamora Morrison and the lady who plays Fennec Shan, and he was talking about that. He was saying that Boba Fett's talking too much in this series. Like Tamora Morrison wanted to have less lines to keep Boba Fett mysterious. And the thing is, with the Boba Fett series, he's taken off his helmet a lot. Like he takes it off every chance he gets. And this is supposed to be the same Boba Fett that we saw in the original trilogy, that we briefly saw in the Clone Wars animated series. This is supposed to be an uber badass, and he gets his ass kicked by a bunch of Tusken Raiders.
Like,
and we go through
and a big ass.
What I loved about the Mandalorian character, Din Djarin, what I loved about him is he had. I mean, unfortunately, there was 2 circumstances to where he had to take off his helmet, but for the most part, he has like an oath to where he keeps his helmet on, and you see how he like has that. He's very passionate in the Mandalorian about keeping his helmet on during that series. And if they were to have like a whole season of Mandalorian where he's taking off his helmet constantly, I'd be like, well, this is
take you out of
bullshit. You know, it'd take me out of it. So, because that's what makes that character so mysterious, and you can tell his emotion behind the mask, you know, behind his face, all that, but behind what he's has on. And I feel like that's even more effective than, you know, seeing the emotions just without the helmet on. And so yeah, what they're doing with Boba Fett is just hugely disappointing.
It's embarrassing.
Well, even on the Mandalorian's part, like I don't want to attack anyone's personal appearance, but Pedro Pascal, he's not that intimidating without his helmet.
Yeah, he's just another pretty face.
That's why I'm kind of, you know, as a huge fan of The Last of Us, I was kind of questioning him as Joel, you know, in the Last of Us TV series. That I was just like, you know, I don't know if because Joel is a very threatening kind of like presence in a way, like the way he looks. He's very, you know, he's kind of based off Hugh Jackman. If you see Hugh Jackman standing there shirtless, you're like, oh, please don't kill me. So, so it's like he's kind of based off of that kind of grizzled kind of guy. And I just don't really get that with Pedro Pascal.
Yeah. And what they're doing with Boba Fett is really heartbreaking because it's, again, another thing that I'm noticing is that you take really popular characters and then you just neuter them. I saw this with Loki. Loki got his ass fucking neutered in his own TV show. Now it's happening with Boba Fett. Boba Fett's acting like a complete idiot. This isn't the same Boba Fett that we saw. And to be fair, we didn't see much of him in the original trilogy, but we know that he was one of the greatest bounty hunters. How did he get that status? Well, we don't really find out in this series because he just keeps getting his ass kicked. And you know, that's a good segue into a character that they violated for me.
Hey, let's be fair. I thought you were going to say. I thought you were going to say Luke because I was going to say, okay, it's not quite that bad, but still, I get it. But let's continue.
So Han Solo. I don't really like what they did with Han Solo in the end.
Me neither.
This is, and let me explain.
Now, in the end, do you mean in Rise of Skywalker or in the Force Awakens?
No, Force Awakens. Force Awakens all the way.
Because he was in Rise of Skywalker as well. So I was just trying
but that was technically his Kylo's like unconscious memory.
That was honestly the only like decent part of that movie. I actually kind of liked that scene because it was kind of more of an emotional connection between his dad and him, and that kind of emotional moment. That was the only thing that was remotely decent in that whole thing.
Hey, you know what made that scene more realistic? In the very next scene, Kylo Ren is in a straitjacket because he's going insane.
Yeah.
Seen the vision of someone who wasn't even force sensitive. I think it should have been Anakin's spirit that showed up there, but
that would have been now that you say that would have been better. Yeah.
So
Anakin's spirit was Anakin's spirit was going to show up instead of Yoda apparently in The Last Jedi. It was going to be Anakin. that was what they were referring to. It was going to be Anakin that was going to show up instead of Yoda initially. But
Nostalgia.
I feel like for Luke though, it makes most sense that Yoda would show up because Yoda was the one that guided him throughout, his journey with the Force and all that stuff. So I guess that does make the most sense that Yoda would show up. But I feel like Anakin would be the one that would be more willing to destroy the Jedi texts. So I feel like if he was to show up, I feel like he'd be one that would be like, "Oh yeah, let's burn these." He really. I feel like he wouldn't really care because his relationship with the Jedi was a lot more complicated. So
Han Solo. Here's one of the things that I found very problematic about what they did with him. They put him in a situation where you would get emotional and understand that Han Solo is kind of screwed. He's at the end of this rope. And this is also influenced by Harrison Ford not wanting to play Han Solo anymore. So I fully understand that. With that said, they made Han Solo a deadbeat dad. When we see Han Solo, he's essentially back to where he started, or back to where we first seen him in A New Hope. He's a scoundrel. He's a smuggler. He's on the run. And the thing about character development is that you progress past that shit. Okay. And so now they say that Han and Leia split up. One of the big reasons was because Kylo Ren went to join the dark side. And so that kind of split them up. And again, this is all referencing the expanded universe. And if I remember correctly, Han and Leia didn't split up in the expanded universe when that happened. They were still together. I haven't read too much of the expanded universe, so it's kind of like secondhand knowledge. But why would you regress Han Solo back to where he was in A New Hope? What would be the purpose in doing that?
Nostalgia.
Lazy writing.
Yeah.
And then also him being conveniently near Jakku to pick up the Millennium Falcon. He just happens to be there. I kind of would have expected more of Han Solo to have kept the Falcon, and him and Chewie are going off on their little adventures. That's sort of the thing that I would expect, but that didn't happen.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Is Han the type of guy that you really throw that much development towards? He's always kind of been the scoundrel. Like,
yeah, but
throughout an entire trilogy, he was a scoundrel.
Up until the end, where he became the rebellion general.
Exactly. I was just going to say that. He is promoted to a fucking rebellion general.
Yeah.
A mere scoundrel doesn't. Yeah, I mean, a mere scoundrel doesn't get that position unless you're infamous in your rebellion. And so my point is that, okay, you could have taken Han's story in many different ways, and all of those ways could have led to his death because, Harrison Ford didn't want to play Han Solo anymore. So if you're going to kill him off, there's a better way to do it than first stripping his character away, stripping him of his title as Rebellion General, a hero that saved the galaxy, to a scoundrel that has debts with everybody and he has nowhere else to run. And I have a huge problem with that, especially because I was so invested in his story and he finally got the girl, right? And so then we get to Force Awakens, and there's supposed to be a progression of time, and there's supposed to be lots of things that have happened since we last saw them. And the first thing we get is, everything in the galaxy is pretty much the same.
Yeah.
Damn.
I mean, see, and that has to be what makes Chewie one of the best characters in Star Wars, because you can't mess up a plot line with him like that, because he's the dog of Star Wars. You can't mess up the dog of Star Wars. So
he's a Mog.
Yeah, so
exactly. Not to mention that Chewie was actually inspired by George Lucas's dog, or was it Spielberg? I think one of the directors' dog was the inspiration for Chewbacca.
They kind of make him a joke in The Last Jedi, though. They made him a walking laughing stock, playing with little animated porg bears.
Oh god! Don't even get me
big
started
walking
on
carpet.
But yeah, and don't even get me started on. I know I'm always the one that gets shit for it, and I've actually had people, yell at me over this, but they should have killed Chewie and Rise of Skywalker. I'm sorry, they should have, because if you would have had Rey actually kill him with dark side powers, like imagine that character development. She would have been like, oh my god, I just killed one of my best friends due to this evil dark side. I have to put a stop to this. And it would have been this huge thing for her character. It would have been great development for her. But no, they're just like, oh, Chewie's on the wrong ship. Oops. Okay. Yeah, you didn't kill anyone.
Bless you.
So, I mean, I know people would have said like, "Oh, that would have been a bullshit way for him to go out," but I feel like Chewie's always been that type of guy who would go out in a blaze of glory, if you would say so.
Well, that's what happened in the expanded universe.
Yeah,
he was on a planet that was blowing up. He saved, I forgot who he saved, but he basically sacrificed himself to save people.
Yeah,
and so he went out in a blaze of glory. But no, he's fine, and he finally gets his medal too, right?
Yeah.
He gets a hand-me-down medal, by the way. I think that was supposed to be like Leia's medal, not a new medal.
Which also, speaking of deaths, like you kill, also like, because I'm seeing Force Awakens again, and just like Finn, like his plot line, like you finish his arc. His arc would have been perfect if you would have finished his arc at the moment that he kills himself, whenever he's going down there to save the galaxy, when he's about to blow up that machine that is, going to destroy that base, and then instead of having Rose hit his ship and then rescue him and be like, we don't fight the things we love, we save the whatever bullshit line.
Not fighting what we hate, saving what we love.
What do you think he was doing, you dumb bitch?
And then I'm like, if you would have killed him in that scene, that completes his character arc, and that makes him kind of the hero of that movie.
Like, or better yet, though, just have those two go out together.
Yeah,
no, I don't need Rose's ass to be remembered. No, she can stay in the sidelines. Okay, Rose was a character that didn't need to be made. Okay, Rian Johnson put her there to be a political device, to talk about the sins of rich people and about slavery.
That's rich coming from Disney.
I mean, yes. the fact that even her sister at the beginning had one scene and was a better character than her.
That whole scene was a shit show in and of itself.
Yeah. What kind of fucking bombers were those? What happened to the Y-wing? We never see them again. Not until the right.
Why? Because Rian Johnson wanted to have his World War II style scene, and I can respect that. Problem is that it wasn't practical in the universe. You have Y-wing bombers; they've been there since the prequels. They had versions of Y-wing bombers there, and you didn't use them. You decided to use these slow ass vehicles that wouldn't realistically be in a war, especially with how easily they could be destroyed. It just wasn't practical.
Oh God, I'm watching Force Awakens and Captain Phasma just popped up, and I was I was like, this is a waste of a character.
The new Boba Fett.
Like,
that's literally what she was. She was there to sell toys, and she was casted for her being, for the diversity and inclusion quota. Talking about. I saw a few interviews where she was like, "You really get to understand Captain Phasma and her motivations as a character." She's giving all this flowery language about how this is going to be a really in-depth character with lots of different backstories and complexity.
You do if you read her book, but I shouldn't have to read. I have read her book, Phasma, and you shouldn't have, because I'm a fan of the books and the movies. But I shouldn't have to read her book in order to get a great character. I should be able to watch her in the movies and get a great character. But the only time when she's remotely decent is in her own book. And that was just, a bummer that they didn't give us that in the cinema.
But she looks cool, right? Shiny ass armor.
Yeah, and also question, what the fuck kind of armor was that? Was that Beskar, or was that shit made from something else, though?
I heard that was made from remnants of one of Palpatine's yachts.
Oh, what the fuck?
I'm not kidding. They literally said that. They said that her armor was made out of one of Palpatine's old yachts.
Palpatine has yachts?
Yeah.
What the?
Apparently.
Why am I just now learning about
probably
this?
a Nubian. Yeah, probably a Nubian. Yeah, because he is from Naboo.
Yeah, but you know what?
Yeah, but God.
I mean, why?
Do y'all want to talk about Zombie Emperor? Like, that's
Oh
what I
my!
call him.
Oh God!
Zombie Emperor.
I'll tell you what. Let's fly through the Last Jedi, and then we'll get to that. One last thing I do want to say about Force Awakens. Well, a couple things. One, Finn was underutilized. He had a great story concept, and they pissed that away. I didn't find his turn at the beginning of the film believable because one, it was said that was his first mission. Two, I would have expected that kind of PTSD from a veteran, someone who's done these things, and then now he gets to this mission and he's gunning down unarmed civilians. That would fuck with somebody. Of course, that would fuck with anybody. Let's be real.
Yeah,
it's just for the sake of the story, it wasn't as believable. I couldn't believe that he just had a change of heart on his first mission. I couldn't buy that.
Yeah, I can understand that. And fun fact, apparently Tom Holland was supposed to be Finn, but then whenever they went to put him in this and shoot scenes with him, apparently he could not stop laughing at the droid sounds that the droid was making. So they were like, "Yeah, this is not going to work out."
Really?
He literally just couldn't stop laughing.
Who knew that Spider-Man? Who knew that Spider-Man could have played a stormtrooper?
I know, right? Yeah. So initially it was going to be a white man, and then it turned into a black man. So
diversity and inclusion.
But hey, it was okay. They didn't go on to say like, oh, look at this, a black stormtrooper. They didn't do anything like that. So it was fine.
Actually, the media started pushing these articles that people were having problems with Finn being a stormtrooper, like a black guy is a stormtrooper. They were trying to spin some bullshit narrative that people were having problem with a black stormtrooper. But what actually was happening is that people thought that these stormtroopers were still the clones from the prequels, and so they were kind of confused as to who Finn was. But if you're not following the story very much, then I can understand how it's easily mistaken for those things. But it's another example of how the media was trying to push an idea, even back then, that you got racist fans that don't like diversity in their films. Even though we've had so many different diverse castings in films over the past 70 years plus.
I mean, but even the John Boyega has come out and said that about bashing the Star Wars trilogy, saying that they did not know how to write a person of color, or he specified person of color, but he didn't need to. But he said that he was really upset because he's like, they did not know how to write my character. He was really upset about that. And that he just became pretty much a running gag because all he did was just shouted Ray for we should do a drinking game of Rise of Skywalker, and every single time that he says Ray, we need to take a shot or something like that.
Jesus Christ! Put that right next to the Evil Dies Tonight from Halloween Kills drinking game.
Yeah. There you go.
There you go.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else you guys want to say in regards for Force Awakens before we move on?
No.
I will say this. I feel like while you had issues with Han Solo as a character, I do feel like his death was well done. I feel like I feel like Han maybe would have the fact that his son killed him was development for his son, good development for his son, while also, making us kind of, as the audience, feel really emotional because we just lost one of our heroes with Han Solo.
My problem wasn't that the way they killed him. My problem was how they handled his character up until that point. That's my only issue. That they made him a deadbeat dad. He was separated from Leia, which should never have happened. And essentially, Leia just sends Han to his death. And it's like, you know what? They should have been together in the first place. And all this time, I'm thinking to myself, okay, when the fuck is Luke going to show up? That's one of my other critiques about this film, is that Luke Skywalker shouldn't have been missing for so long. They should have brought him in. As much as I would have been pissed off at it, they should have had him come in at the forest scene on Starkiller Base, where that lightsaber starts to jiggle. And then who catches it? Luke. That's who it should have been. At least then we would have got Luke and we would have got his first lightsaber fight after 30 years. And he would have kicked Kylo Ren's ass because he is the master.
Yep.
And so then he takes Rey and is like, okay, I'm going to train you now. I'm going to teach you the ways of the Force to become a Jedi, like many before you,
Yeah.
And then you would have set up
sweet.
the next film. And no, we don't get that. We just get him standing on fucking Octo at
Taking a piss.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, it looked like he was standing by a grave, and I remember people were making theories like, "Oh, maybe he's standing over someone's grave, like an important Jedi." But no, it's just
I love Mark Hamill in these interviews though, because he was in an interview for Last Jedi, and he wasn't saying anything, and someone per actor or something tapped on his shoulder. He's like, "All right, are you gonna say something?" He's like, "Oh, I'm supposed to say something. Oh, sorry, I'm just used to looking out at the camera and staring intensely." Or something, because he was like making fun of his Force Awakens appearance.
Yep. One more thing that bothered the hell out of me in The Force Awakens. Where the fuck did Luke's old lightsaber come from? A good question for another time. Bullshit.
That will never get answered.
Where the fuck did that come from? Did someone manage to find it while on Bespin or what? That was the biggest thing that bugged me.
The Force brought it to that moment.
Bullshit.
And the Force is what helped her find it.
I think that the thing was falling to what seemed like a bottomless pit, right?
Yeah.
It was a bottomless pit.
Along with Luke's
and it was most likely ejected. It was ejected into the vacuum of Bespin, a cloud planet that's like you infinitely fall. There's no real end. It's like, you're pretty much screwed. And that lightsaber just magically shows up. And I don't know if they've actually come out with like a comic or a novel explaining where the lightsaber came from. But a good question for another. Yeah, I mean, a good question for another time can kiss my ass. As far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, but I do know that in the expanded universe that someone actually did find Luke's lightsaber, or Luke and Anakin's lightsaber, along with Luke's severed hand, and made an evil clone of Luke, and the two fought it off, and then Luke gave Mara Jade his father's lightsaber. That's what I know of.
Yeah. But, with The Force Awakens, we don't get an explanation. And in the entire trilogy, we don't get an explanation. A good question for another time? Nope. We're not going to explain it. And some people could, make the argument that, oh, well, it wouldn't have made sense to relay a story like that in such a trying time, or such a time where, we're kind of low on time. With that said, you had 2 other movies to explain where that fucking thing came from. But
you don't plant those seeds and don't pay it off.
No payoff. No good payoff.
Yeah,
at
and
all.
Luke's second lightsaber in The Last Jedi. Where the fuck is it? We only see it in one flashback, and that's it, though. Like,
his lightsaber is just gone. No green lightsaber. And you knew something was wrong when he showed up on Crate with the blue lightsaber. It's like, something's off about that.
Where'd you get this?
Just chuck the thing. Chuck it.
It's going to land right on my bed, so that's safe.
I just heard something.
That's where.
So that was Daner's impression of Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi.
Luke Skywalker was in that movie? I'm not sure about that.
Jake Skywalker. Okay. Are we ready for The Last Jedi?
Or if they call it The Last Fuck Up.
Now, this will be fun too, because I do want to, I actually am a full-on fan of Force Awakens, and I actually am a fan of not half. I think it's even less than half of The Last Jedi. There is a storyline in there that I do really like, and then there's a lot of shit. So that's why this will be an interesting discussion, because you have to have a somewhat fan in here to kind of make for an interesting discussion.
To have balance, as it were.
Yeah. So.
Okay. Well, let's see. My first issue is that this film takes place around the same time as The Force Awakens. That's the first big problem. Why is it a problem? Because there's no room for character development. When Finn got his back chopped up, I didn't expect him to get up immediately after that. And this was mere hours maybe since Starkiller Base, right? It was pretty soon, and this is where his character assassination really starts. The first thing we get with Finn is jokes. First, he smacks his head on the plaster of the glass that he's in, because he's laying down in that bed tube thing, the med bay. Okay, that's the first thing. Then he falls out of the bed clumsily. The next thing we see of him, he's leaking water everywhere. And this is sort of that MCU style humor that is hit or miss depending on where it's being used. And remember, this is supposed to be a character that we care about. The guy who just got his back slashed and he's walking around pretty good, all things considered.
Yeah, everything with Finn was god. But no.
Another issue. What was his name? General Hux. Now, this is something that I forgot to say when we were discussing Force Awakens, but I'll mention it here.
Yeah,
that the thing with General Hux is that he was a really interesting character in the Force Awakens. He was Tarkin in the sense that he buffed up against Kylo Ren, and you had this sort of back and forth with them, where it's like Kylo Ren would not mind killing off any officer that would be mouthing off to him, but Hux was different. He was treated very differently in The Force Awakens. And what happens to him in The Last Jedi here? They humiliate him. Snoke shows up and just throws him around like a rag doll, and he gives off this pathetic whimper. Oh! Okay, this is supposed to be a guy
even his dialogue,
and also not to mention his very first scene too. Like whenever he's having that encounter with Poe, and then Poe's just cracking jokes that whole time,
and he's not figuring it out. It's like you're making an embarrassment out of him.
Yeah, and I'm like, and this was a guy who practically you could compare him in a way, like that scene where he's like, "It'll be the last day of the Republic." Like that felt like Hitler.
That's what I said. A ginger Hitler.
I'm like, this guy felt like a ginger Hitler. This guy is ruthless. And so yeah, exactly. And I've gotten a lot of comparisons to Domhnall Gleeson. They're like, "Hey, you look like Domhnall Gleeson." I'm like, "Oh, thank you." So
which is actually funny though, because the guy who played him was actually in the Harry Potter movie franchise along with his dad.
Yeah, and I've been compared to Ron Weasley several times too. Harry Potter. So,
for General Hux.
Yeah.
Or General Hux.
Yeah.
Even his dialogue was shit. You're doomed. Like, what the fuck?
Very
was
cliche. He had stronger dialogue in The Force Awakens. Yeah. The problem is The Force Awakens, like many films that I've watched these days, is that they always have these good elements, but these good elements don't come together to make a good film. And so, I always blame The Force Awakens because this is where the shit started. And it's also, Kathleen Kennedy saying that, we didn't have any source material to pull from to make these films, even though it's bullshit. And so then The Last Jedi just adds...
Thank you.
And The Last Jedi just makes things worse. The Last Jedi made so many things worse. Luke throwing that lightsaber deliberately behind him. He was very... sure of himself that he was going to chuck that thing. His father's lightsaber, the lightsaber he used when he first fought Vader. He doesn't merely let it drop from his hands like he's shocked to see it back, and he has this sort of pain. He just chucks it. The way they handled him, him being just a walking corpse, essentially. Him doing all these weird ass things. I mean, look, there you go. I mean, all we gotta do is bring up that shit here.
Fucking titty milk.
Fucking bullshit.
Oh, are you telling me that did not look appetizing to y'all? That y'all would not drink
looked
that?
like sewer water with like a peppermint color.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is that he got it straight from that bastard's tit.
He might as well have just started sucking it.
At that point,
that would have been more entertaining. I would have actually been into.
Think I downloaded the wrong Star Wars movie.
Star Wars XXX. What is this I'm watching?
I mean, The Last Jedi was the very first movie I actually walked out of before the credits rolled. I started walking out when the broom kid showed up and used the force to grab it. I was like, I'm done. I walked out of the theater.
Bye.
It was cold outside. It was cold and it was drizzling. I literally sat in the back trunk of our truck because I didn't have a key on me. I just literally walked out and I just sat there in the cold and the rain, just contemplating what I witnessed. And that was the first time that ever happened. So that's just proof as how much I really hated this film. And it gets worse because, after you get past the whole kamikaze run with the bombers, we get Rose. We get introduced to Rose. And the pathetic thing about this is that we see Rose, a character we've never met before, mourn the death of her sister, but we don't get to see Luke mourn the death of Han Solo.
Yeah,
that is one of the biggest cardinal sins you could ever do in a franchise. You give us a character that we've never met before, and she gets to mourn the death of her sister. But
but don't they have a scene where
they cut it? They did.
Yeah,
They filmed the scene for it, but they cut it. They cut the scene.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a problem with that too because Han Solo just died, not too long ago, and Leia doesn't seem too distraught about it either. She's just kind of chilling around. And to be fair, she's got the resistance on her shoulder.
When it happened, Leia was heartbroken, like you saw on her face.
But we still didn't see much reaction to her in this film. Which this is your husband, the father of your child, and he's just been murdered by your son. You wouldn't just have a moment of you would be very pissed off, like visibly. Like you can deal with the pain of loss while you're trying to save the rest of your resistance, but you would still have emotions about it. You would still be upset, but instead she was, cracking wise to Poe because of his bombing run, saying, "Oh, you don't solve a problem by just jumping into your cockpit." Did you guys catch that? Yeah. Jumping into your cockpit. Now, many people didn't pick that up. I didn't at first either until I saw the film a second time. I was like, "Oh, really? You gave her that piece of dialogue?" Okay.
Yeah.
All right, fly boy.
But hey, let's just say that the scene with her that really made it all worth it was the Mary Poppins style.
God damn it.
The Force Space Mary Poppins. Yeah, where she was. You might as well put Yondu in that scene and have him be flying with a little umbrella or something. That would have been much more interesting.
It was insulting.
Yep, and not to mention Admiral Akbar was the one to get killed.
And I don't mind her using the Force, because she is Force sensitive. Like that's always been part of the expanded universe. Is that she is Force sensitive.
The one problem is that no Jedi ever pull off that shit.
No.
Yeah.
You get sucked out into the vacuum of space, especially when you're not wearing a suit. You're fucked. The Force doesn't protect your ass from that. It never has.
It makes me wonder if they were gonna kill her off, and then the movie came out whenever, unfortunately, Carrie Fisher passed, and that makes me wonder if they reshot a scene or something like that to make that shit happen, so they wouldn't kill her off or something. Because I don't know. From what I've heard, I don't think that was a plan. Because from what I've heard, Rise of Skywalker is going to be Leia's film. They said that this is Luke's film, Rise of Skywalker is going to be Leia's, and they were trying to make it where they had each of the main each of the returning characters. Like Force Awakens is going to be Han's film, Last Jedi was Luke's, and then Leia's was going to be the Rise of Skywalker. But they fucked that up. So
big time.
Yeah.
And space, Mary Poppins, and they also wipe out the entirety of the chain of command, including Admiral Akbar. We didn't get a glorious death.
Here's what they should have they should have replaced the pink-haired lady with Admiral Akbar. If it was Admiral Akbar that did that same scene, that you have to keep in the same scene, all that stuff where she kills herself fighting off all those Star Destroyers, all that stuff. You keep in that same shit, but you do it with Admiral Akbar. That would have been such a great end to his character. Like you would have related to that. You would have understood him. You would have been able to feel the emotion behind it. It would have been such a better.
Exactly.
It still comes at a horrible cost, though.
Yes,
It's pretty
exactly.
simple. It prevents Rose's execution.
Yeah,
that is the worst thing about it. I think I mentioned this in the last episode.
Yeah,
That's
you
the
kinda
worst
did.
part.
Also,
It prevented Rose's execution.
And another thing, do you know who should have been on the bridge instead of Akbar? It should have been Haldo. not to mention at least Akbar, like, and not that why the fuck was Haldo withholding information though? Like, the survival of this army is in your hands, and you're not telling us. You're just gonna just like hold out on this though. I mean, like, not to mention that, like, oh, like we're running on fumes. They're right on their asses. What do you want us to do? Like, what's the plan?
Believe women.
Believe women. No. Get the fuck out of here. Nah, bitch.
Hashtag me too.
Get the fuck out of here.
Hashtag blah.
Yeah.
No shit.
And like, to be honest though, like, it wouldn't, like, I didn't even like Medicio del Toro's Guillermo Toro.
What was his name?
Benicio del Toro.
Yeah, I didn't like the hacker dude. He pissed me off a lot though.
Which is so sad that that actor, like, you watch some of his smaller stuff, he's a phenomenal actor.
Yeah,
he's great.
But it's just whenever they put him in these like big budget things like Guardians of the Galaxy, he's all that like really goofy, over the top, weird, ridiculous role, and then like in this film, he's that over the top, weird, ridiculous character that is
just minus that hairstyle and weird clothing.
Yeah, and that's
minus the David Bowie cosplay, because I always said it was the David Bowie cosplay in Guardians of the Galaxy.
That stutter always pissed me off though. Like, at least told them the plan. At least Haldo should have told them the plan. Like, instead of just sending them to Canto Bight and just look for this master hacker, at least say, oh, here's how it would have gone. Here's how it should have gone though. Which instead it was Akbar instead of Haldo. General, do we have a plan? Yes, we do. There's this abandoned base on Crate that was used during the time against the Empire. We're going to hunker down there. Like, they're still going to chase this ship, right? But secretly, we're going to load up the transport ship. We're going to hide down there. And they think that we're on this ship, and once they blow it up, though, we're going to hide. They think that they won, though. They're going to go away. However, we're going to hide down there and get reinforcements to come to get us. That would have been simple instead of just like, just get off my bridge. You're just another flyboy. You're just another maverick. Like, I just wanted to crawl through that screen and literally just choke that bitch.
No.
Admiral Haldo is one of the worst characters I've ever had the displeasure of viewing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Who's Haldo?
Yeah.
And then
Karen.
The her Haldo maneuver.
Another great actress that was completely just wasted in this movie, and it was horrible to see that Laura Dern was just completely, wasted. And
yeah, doesn't she have a T-Rex to go chase or something?
Yeah.
Oh God.
And the Haldo maneuver. Let's talk about the Haldo maneuver. I know that a lot of people don't like to talk about it because it brings a whole lot of logistic questions. If a cruiser can have that much damage on a super Star Destroyer, as well as every other surrounding Star Destroyer, that affects the future of space battles. I know a lot of people like to say that it doesn't, but it does. Because they try and fix this in The Rise of Skywalker, saying, oh, it was a 1 in a million shot. No, it wasn't.
No.
She knew exactly what she was doing, and it worked out perfectly. Arguably, the shot looks gorgeous. From a visual standpoint, it looks really gorgeous. But I'm not looking at something with just mere, it being gorgeous and pretty to look at. I need to look at the substance.
That's why I said amazing, well-made films with horrible lore. Because you look at that scene, you're like, oh, visually, it's like the effects were amazing during that and stuff like that. It's just and The Last Jedi as a whole is one of the best visually appealing Star Wars movies, pretty much that we've ever had. Like, if you look at the actual visual effects of it, it's pretty phenomenal. But that's pretty much most of what it has going for it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah, not to mention.
Now this will be fun because this is actually something that I will be disagreeing with all of you guys on. I actually did not mind Luke's story in this film.
Okay, let me ask this: why did you not mind it?
Because to me, I feel like at this state of time that Luke would, be that kind of, character who every single Jedi is dead. Every single, pretty much, the Jedi have pretty much lost. I mean, the Empire, there's more Empire still left than there are Jedis. And so I feel like in that stage, with everything that he's been through, all the stuff that he's experienced, all the things that, all the friends he's witnessed die, all the shit he's had to deal with, I feel like, maybe I could understand, like they found a way to make me understand his reasoning as to why he wants the Jedi to end and why he just wants to kind of hide and be, in his own island, kind of enjoying life, enjoying breast milk, stuff like that, whatever he wants to do with his life. Like, it made me kind of understand it, especially with the story that they provide with him in what happened with the Jedi Academy that he built, that he tried to make, that he tried to push the Jedi Order in the right direction, and then it came crashing down on him. And so I feel like, he's just kind of at that point where every person has that midlife crisis, or every person has that whenever they're older, they just kind of sometimes feel like giving up. And it's not till later, not till Yoda shows up, that inspires him to not give up and inspires him to push forward and actually do something later on in the film. That's how I perceived his arc in The Last Jedi, and I personally was a fan of it myself.
All right. Let us begin, shall we? So you mentioned about him losing everybody he cared about, losing his Jedi Academy, losing Ben Solo to the dark side, having all the Jedi pretty much be dead. He's the last of the Jedi, right?
Except for Baby Yoda. Apparently, the writers confirmed that
Yes.
the writers confirmed that he survived the Jedi Academy.
But this was before Baby Yoda was included.
Yes.
Okay, so he is at the point where he is in Last Jedi. He's pretty much lost everything, right?
Yeah.
Okay. That is how he was in the original trilogy. He started out as a simple farm boy. And because he got mixed up with the Rebellion versus the Empire, Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru were dead. He lost all his family. He didn't know that he had a sister. He's alone, by all rights. But until he meets Obi-Wan, who convinces him to join him in his quest to go to Alderaan and deliver the Death Star plans. Okay, the point where he's at now is pretty much where he was in the original trilogy. So, once again, you're rehashing old shit. Except it's a lot worse, because what the original trilogy did beautifully was it established Luke's weakness. What was his weakness? His compassion for his friends. His compassion for his father. Luke Skywalker, no matter how depressed he gets, he still had a sister, a biological sister. He had a brother-in-law in Han Solo. Yes, his nephew turns the dark side, but he's still alive at that point. Okay. Luke Skywalker wanting to abandon the people that he fought side by side with during the original trilogy makes zero sense. I don't care how depressed you get. That you can say that happens to a lot of people. I can agree with that. With that said, why did you do it to Luke? Because a lot of people were wanting to see Luke be the Grandmaster Jedi badass that we briefly saw in Return of the Jedi. And speaking of Return of the Jedi, he made, or was going to make, the ultimate sacrifice. He took a big risk in giving himself up to Vader to be taken up to the Emperor. Okay, Darth Vader is his father. And even then, on Endor, when they were having that conversation, he was begging his father to come back to the light. Let's not forget that Darth Vader, at this point, was one of the most evil men in the galaxy. He ruled with an iron fist. He showed very little mercy. he was very dangerous. He's as bad as they could get. Yet he still had hope that his father could turn back to the light, which did happen. And he was willing to give up his life to do so. And when he was fighting Vader in the throne room, and he realized what he had just done to his father, he realized that he was going down the path that his father did, the dark side. So he turns off his lightsaber. He throws it away. He stands up triumphantly to the Emperor. He says, "You have failed, Your Highness. I am a Jedi, like my father before me."
Oh, one of the greatest scenes ever.
Yeah.
Now, you take all of that, and you take the fact that he went to Bespin in the middle of his training because his friends were in danger because of the vision that he had. He lost his hand, but he was willing to risk his life to save his friends. Take all that context and bring it to Luke in The Last Jedi, and you tell me that that is a natural progression, that one of the most hopeful, optimistic characters in cinematic history is lessened to a grumpy old hermit that wants to die. Now, you compare him being a hermit to how Obi-Wan was, and hell, even Yoda. Okay, they lost everything too. If you think about Obi-Wan in context of the Clone Wars, he lost his girlfriend, the mistress,
the Baroness.
Yes. Okay. That's a pretty low blow, and especially because it was done by the man who killed his master, Darth Maul.
Yeah.
Okay. Obi-Wan now has a sense of purpose. Yes, he's exiling himself. He's hiding out in the desert, but he's watching over Luke because he knows that Luke can be the new hope, the future of the Jedi, to bring them back. Okay. He went through similar experiences that Luke would have went through, according to what The Last Jedi says. But Yoda and Obi-Wan didn't turn into guys that wanted to die. They went to the most unfindable place in the galaxy just to die. You're telling me that Luke would naturally go that route, even though in the original trilogy he sacrificed so much? He was reckless. He was reckless, and he got his hand cut off. And he goes to on the hope that his father can still be turned back to the light side. And you're telling me that in The Last Jedi, he has this little vision of Kylo Ren committing unspeakable murders and shit, and that is what makes him lose his balance? I don't buy it one bit. No. Because that's not the Luke Skywalker that I grew up with. That's not the Luke Skywalker that many people grew up with, which is why I believe in The Mandalorian, they brought him back. They brought Luke back because they knew damn well that people were not happy with how Luke ended up in The Last Jedi. This is also true when you look at the interviews that Mark Hamill had done. He was obviously distressed about what they had done with his character. You can see him in multiple interviews talking about how he had a back and forth with Ryan, and he said, this is not what a Jedi does. He doesn't just give up. He goes through a process of trying to cope with what he had done, if he had done something wrong, but then he gets back on his feet and he tries to put it right. And then he also said, I had to think of Luke Skywalker in this movie as another character. Maybe he's Jake Skywalker. He's not my Luke Skywalker. And that's a big indicator, especially coming from the man who's played him for so long. He would know the character. On top of the fact, you just look at the original trilogy and you have the evidence right there.
Yeah.
And speaking of...
I will say this too, is that I know that, and Kyle brings it up in the comments here that Mark Hamill did not like how they handled Luke in the so-called sequel trilogy. I will say this though, is that you would not have liked it either way, because there was actually, and I will send them to you after the stream so you can see them for yourself. But there was actual interviews with George Lucas and stuff that said that was his vision for Luke in his trilogy. He had Luke kind of as a hermit style character too, that was more grizzled, that was more rough, that was more that kind of style, and apparently that was Lucas's vision. That was the only thing.
What's the full context of it though? He
says that was the only thing in The Last Jedi that really matched his vision. But he said Luke was what matched his, that character, that interpretation of that character would have been his interpretation as well too. So, but
I mean, that's a good point. With that said, George Lucas is also the man that gave us Jar Jar.
Oh god.
Yeah.
So I'm going to
True.
take certain things that he says with a grain of salt, especially because everything I
How about a
just
grain of
said,
sand?
Yeah.
everything I said isn't nullified with what Lucas said. Because why would Lucas give us that interpretation of the character only to undo that? Now, look again, that is a realistic, quote unquote, approach to what could happen to somebody. With that said, do you need to do it with Luke Skywalker?
Oh no.
At this point, you've already violated the character of Han Solo by making him a deadbeat dad. And if you notice, they systematically went through each of the original trio and bastardized them in one way or another. You saw this first with the Han Solo, and then you see this with Luke. My biggest problem with the film is how they treated Luke. It wasn't the only one, and Mark Hamill obviously had his own feelings on it. We already talked about it. And then with Leia in The Rise of Skywalker, obviously Carrie Fisher passed away, so there's not much that we can really say about her because we don't really know how that would have gone if she was still alive. But one of my other big issues is that Luke went out like a bitch.
Yes.
He force projected himself, and the force projection killed him. Now, it would have been much more fitting if he had actually gone to Crate himself and dueled with Kylo Ren and then died there, sacrificing himself, doing like an Obi-Wan move.
Did you ever see how it should have ended for The Last Jedi?
Yeah.
I saw it a long time ago, but I don't remember it
Yep.
too much.
Where whenever they all fire at him, and then you see him catch every single bolt that fires him, and he just pushes them out at the AT-ATs, and they just get destroyed because he uses the Force to push the laser beams out at them. I was like, oh, that's badass. That would have been.
Or it would have been where Rey and Luke Skywalker like we said, oh, so you think I'm just gonna jump out there with a laser sword in my hand and fight off the entire First Order? Well, it was just Luke Skywalker and Rey, and then next thing you know, there's BB-8 and R2 shooting out their lightsabers, and they go and charge. That wasn't how it should have ended.
I do though like that final fight because in a way I feel like that almost made more of a fool of Kylo. That was just kind of being like to the fact that like, hey, you can't hit me type of deal, like because of him doing a force projection, and it introduces a new force ability that we've never seen in these movies. That I
Which
thought
doesn't
was,
get an explanation, or is it ever used again?
No, it's not ever used again. But I mean,
where else was it used? Because I mean, as far as the movies are concerned, we never saw it again.
Well, what other times would we see it? There's only one movie
Rise
after
of Skywalker, I think.
I mean, there was only one movie afterwards. So I mean, they didn't use it in that one, but pretty much was. Other than Rey, there was no Jedi in Rise of Skywalker to be able to use it.
Right, but that again goes back to my issue is that you're introducing new force abilities at the tail end of your entire saga. And that's something that I just can never get on board with because you're introducing these things that could have really changed a lot in the story. If this is some new force ability, first of all, it's never explained how this even came to be. There's no explanation. There's no explanation for the force healing. There's no explanation for the force projection. And in the context of the rest of the films, well, that could have, force projection could have been used very well in certain situations. But instead they decide to use it here, and then Luke Skywalker dies by doing it. And that's really confusing. Is like how the hell did he die from a simple force projection? That seems like a very bitch way to go out.
I mean, was it the force projection that killed him, or was it using? I don't know. Was it sort of like, or was it one of those situations where, as you see Obi-Wan die in A New Hope, you see him just stand there and he kind of lets himself, pass on with the Force. I don't really call it dying because, dying, you see a character die, while like them, they just kind of disappear. And so they kind of, they almost like become one with the Force in a way. They transcend and all that stuff. And so I feel like he kind of had that poignant passing on that Obi-Wan did in the same way that Obi-Wan did in a way, and it ended in a very poignant way because his journey started with those two sons and his journey ends with the two sons at the end. And
Yes.
so I thought that was really
that looked nice, but given the context of what they did to the character throughout the film, I saw it more of as a slap in the face.
Yeah.
Just because, I mean, you already know my problems I have with it. And I'm not the only one. With that said, there are different ways to do these things. There could have been a better way to handle Luke's death if you're going to have him killed off. And the thing with the with the Rise of Skywalker is that it pretty much undoes almost everything that the Last Jedi did.
Yeah.
So it's like they gave it a sort of fuck it,
which was one of my major issues, because some of the things that they did undo in the Last Jedi, I thought was kind of like the thing that Rise of Skywalker did is it got rid of some of the bad of Last Jedi, which is good, but then it also got rid of some of the stuff that actually was well done in the Last Jedi, and that kind of pissed me off a little bit. So that's why I was not a fan of that one at all. But you gotta say, speaking of Luke Skywalker, you can't deny probably Mark Hamill's best performance as the character. Like, his performance was phenomenal.
I think I prefer him in Return of the Jedi.
Yep. Also,
Sorry.
in The Last Jedi, what the fuck was that about? Like, he goes in exile and he has his X-wing that's underwater. Like, what the fuck?
Clearly referencing Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah.
Which he ends up doing in the Rise of Skywalker anyway.
Like, that should have been like a lesson for Rey, though. If you could get that X-wing out of the water and bring it here, you could go.
Oh, and by the way, when Luke came back as a Force ghost in the Rise of Skywalker, he said, "What I did back then was wrong." You know, he literally had that line. I'm like, yeah, you're just spitting in the face of fucking Rian Johnson and what he did, and it was utterly hilarious. I mean, the movie is shit anyway, but I laughed. I laughed at so much of that film.
But but you know, even if they were, and like I said, I understand people's hates with it. I have my issues with it, but Luke's part, but wasn't that bad. But like in Rise of Skywalker, I was like, even if you were to retcon the whole Luke thing from The Last Jedi, in your next movie, it feels very forced. It's like his next decision, he's like, "Oh, what I did was wrong," and all that stuff. It feels very forced to do it in the very next movie after that. But that's unfortunately JJ couldn't really help that, because he's just trying to fix the issues that
damage
the last
control
I had. So
major damage control, and ended up causing more damage. Let's talk about Snoke and Kylo Ren. I mean, Snoke, another character of wasted potential. I honestly thought that they would have revealed him to be Darth Plagueis. We would have got more context to Episode 3 when he was talking about Darth Plagueis the Wise. And if you think about it, you think about how the Emperor has found a way to cheat death, right, in The Rise of Skywalker. Mm-hmm. That's sort of something I would have expected from Plagueis. But instead, it was Palpatine.
A clone of Palpatine.
Now, y'all are going to kill me again. Another really well done scene. I actually like the scene with Snoke.
Oh,
where he dies?
Where he's cut in half and dies.
I laughed at that. Honestly.
I liked it.
And I'm going to tell you the reason. I'm going to tell you the reason why I think that's actually a really solid scene. So, I've read Colin Trevorrow's script for Rise of Skywalker. Way better, because he actually got to write the script, and I got to read it. It kept Kylo Ren as the villain. It didn't even have the Emperor in it. It was a dark story where he never got redemption. It was this really just kind of made him into the main villain of the story. And with the scene in The Last Jedi, it would have made sense if they were going into Colin Trevorrow's vision for his evil Kylo Ren, because in this film, the fact that he has the gall to like kill his own master like that, I feel like that's something where it's like, oh shit, yeah, he can't be redeemed. He killed his father. He pretty much tried to kill his mom, but he did hesitate with that. But then he goes and just kills his own master outright. Like, this guy is just
Unredeemable.
fully has been taken to the dark side. And I feel like that was a character moment, actually, for Kylo, was killing Snoke the way he did. I feel like that was actually a character moment for him. And I feel like that actually would have boosted his character more if they wouldn't have done that bullshit redemption arc in The Rise of Skywalker, and they would have kept him as this like dark and evil presence or something throughout the trilogy. I feel like that would have really added to that scene in The Last Jedi rather than completely trying to retcon it and do their own thing with it. And I don't know. That's just kind of what I got coming out of it, in my opinion.
Funny thing is, though, is that there are a couple things. One, when Snoke is like harassing Kylo for wearing his mask, that doesn't make any sense. First of all,
No.
Here's why: because in the previous film, he's worn that mask several times, and Snoke never bitched about it. But suddenly, it was like, "Oh, take that ridiculous thing off." And for me, they didn't give him the proper development to become the uber bad, especially because he lost in the first fight with Rey. If you're going to try and make your villain intimidating, just look at what they did with the original trilogy. Look at what they did with Vader in A New Hope. Okay, they made him formidable. He looked formidable. He looked very scary. And he goes against Obi-Wan, and granted, Obi-Wan does sacrifice himself, but Vader still wins that fight. Okay, that's how you establish your villain as the uber bad. When he kicks someone's ass that you like, you get put in this mindset that okay, this guy's dangerous. But with Rey, if circumstances were a little bit different, she could have killed Kylo right there, and then there would be no Last Jedi with him killing Snoke. Kylo would have been dead, and then you'd have to find a new bad guy, and then it'll be a sort of rinse and repeat with Snoke. Yeah. But Kylo had that potential. He had that potential to be that uber bad with enough time and training. But
I feel like by killing it, because the thing is you can compare it to Darth Vader in The Last Jedi. Is that or not Last Jedi, Return of the Jedi. But that was in the reverse mode. Is that people say, oh, well, bring back the Emperor. That was fine because, it wasn't about him killing the Emperor. It was about him saving his son Luke. That was, the redemption arc. No. The thing is, yes, it was about saving Luke, but it was also, oh my God, he had the gall to pick up his master and throw his master and just, while his master was shooting lightning at him, and kill him. He had the gall to do that just to save his own son. And in this film, Kylo does that, but in the opposite way, where he has the gall to literally just make a fool out of his own master and kill his own master just to be able to pretty much say, like, hey, I am dark side and I want Rey to join me, and was trying to make this whole thing was trying to show her the ways of the dark side so she could join him. And
or the only way, or how it should have been more of a badass part, though it should have been that, like, while Palpatine is electrocuting Luke, like, a lightsaber can just go through Palpatine's chest, though, and on the end of it, it's basically Darth Vader holding Luke's lightsaber. And instead, that's how it should have gone, though, because he could have been saved, though. Instead, he got fried to death.
Yeah. I will say the way Snoke looked when he died was like laugh out loud. He was like the way that his like tongue was hanging out. He was like that. It was kind of did kind of look ridiculous.
Also, someone did make a meme though, where like there was a Snoke figure of him on his throne though, and it's like the original price, and then the discounted price though is like, wow, this collector's item of Snoke on the throne half off.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
What else?
Tali Lentra.
Who?
The A-wing pilot.
Oh,
her.
Forgettable.
Yeah, totally.
I don't remember her.
Yeah.
What's her name? Tali Lentra, Carter?
Yeah, Tali Lentra.
Which pilot are you talking about?
The A-wing pilot, the one with the blue and white A-wing that helped Poe on his bombing run when the First Order was coming.
Are you talking about the one at the beginning?
Yeah, the one at the beginning, the one that's in the A-wing pilot.
Oh, the one that was Rose's sister.
No.
No.
Tally Lintra. It's the Tally Lintra. She was the one when she was the A-wing pilot that got killed when the First Order.
Oh yeah, no one gives a fuck about her.
No one. How do you remember any of these characters by name?
Wasted potential on her getting killed, though.
Lots of wasted potential.
Yeah. Anyway,
Sequel trilogy in a nutshell.
Yes. And not to mention nostalgia baiting in The Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah.
That whole movie doesn't make any sense. One last thing I'll say about Last Jedi. Canto Bight. The most useless subplot in Star Wars.
Yeah.
I think I would have preferred seeing the clones because I found enjoyment seeing Camino. Canto Bight is Disney's injection of their political shit.
I would have fucking preferred Jedi Rocks 2 over that. That
is a stretch.
That I may have even preferred over Canto Bight. I don't know. Like it was because Canto Bight was bad. Like I hated that.
So
bless you.
Water planets, desert planets, no planets, forest planets, casino planets. You're really scraping the bum of the toilet bowl, aren't you?
Oh yeah. Especially because if you think about the context, they have all those animals run wild, and then they leave. You know, it's like Rose and Finn just took a giant shit in the middle of your living room and then ran out the door. And the funny thing is that they did that so they could free the slaves, but they do realize that by destroying the town, who do you think is going to be repairing that shit?
The fucking slaves.
So you didn't really do anything. And then you get little broom kid. He uses the force. He looks up into the stars with hope.
But social commentary.
Apparently Ryan Johnson's trilogy that they were going to do was going to be based off of that kid and stuff.
God damn it!
Who cares?
I heard people making jokes about that. They were saying that, oh yeah, Ryan Johnson's trilogy is still coming. 5 years later, yep, still gonna happen. 20 years later, yes sir, still gonna happen. My sequel
30 years later,
be a good one.
Yeah, it's dead. He's focused on Knives Out now and all their sequels.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you know what that little broom kid should have done? He should have just take that broom and shove it up his ass because he should have just fucked up broom.
Well, you know what, Carter? He could have been a Harry Potter initiate.
They wanted to save that, Carter, for the porn parody.
Oh, yeah, that's right. The broom kid is replaced with some broom dude.
Oh my god!
One of the aliens shows up and it's actually a female. And he's like, "Hey, don't worry, sweetheart. I'll clean the floor and your insides."
Jesus Christ!
One swipe at a time.
You mean sweep?
Stop.
Sweep, yes, one sweep at a time.
Hey, you're wet, just like this mop.
Oh my god!
Dick sand. We've gone into the dick sand. Arguably, it was my fault, but here we are. Anyway, so
hey, Anakin hates sand, so we can't mention any dick sand.
True.
Or dick lava.
Yeah.
That might be worse. Okay, Rise of Skywalker. Who wants to start first?
Oh yes,
Anybody want to start? Let's go a little bit chronologically here.
Do we have to?
Yeah.
Oh no. Okay.
This is a Star Wars episode.
Yeah.
Focusing on the sequel trilogy, that is.
Yeah. The repairing of Luke's old lightsaber. What the fuck?
Well, they had to because they had to undo what Ryan Johnson did, splitting it in half.
Yeah.
Another clue that J.J. Abrams is like, yeah, fuck you, Ryan Johnson. This is my trilogy now.
Yeah,
it's like,
just put tape on it.
Should have.
It should have been his trilogy the whole time if they didn't want to, if they were just going to retcon what Ryan Johnson did, they should have made it JJ's trilogy the whole way through.
Yeah, or better yet, just have Luke's green lightsaber in R2 the whole time. She could have trained with that.
Yeah.
Or just have her build her own fucking lightsaber out of her quarterstaff, like what she has at the end of the movie.
Exactly.
And
Like-
why wasn't that in the beginning? You know,
I don't know, but I mean, I'll be real about one thing. That is a pretty cool looking lightsaber she made.
Oh yeah, and also isn't it
looks like
orange?
a turd almost.
Or
it's like orange or
It's
yellow.
orange.
Or
Yeah,
it's- or is it
which
yellow
we have
or
never
orange?
seen in a
Oh,
Star
yeah.
Wars movie before. We've
Yeah.
probably seen it in video games and comics, but never the movies. But you want to see Rey use her own lightsaber that she built? Nah, she'll just use the one that was used in mass genocide for children.
Yep.
Yeah.
Why is anyone okay with that?
Because remember, the sequel trilogy, like many things in current day Hollywood, is made for the average consumer who doesn't question things. The people that, like in the case of Marvel, they come out with these new characters and these new movies, and then people just eat the shit up. It's like, oh, this character is awesome. Turns out that character wasn't very popular in the comics. So they thought that they could utilize an unpopular character, give it to the audience that doesn't really question much. They're just entertained by any Marvel film. And then you get your tokenized Captain America, your tokenized Spider-Man, the whole kit caboodle type thing. And it's the same thing here with Star Wars, that people obviously they had to do a lot of backtracking for Rise of Skywalker because Last Jedi just fucked everything up, and people knew it. Disney knew it. The movie lost money, and the sequel trilogy underperformed, or the Rise of Skywalker underperformed. Obviously, it made its money, but it still underperformed. Especially for a Star Wars film. It was like a Star Wars film underperformed. And actually, it was Solo, a Star Wars story, that was the first victim of The Last Jedi.
Solo lost money.
But Solo was the only like truly underperforming, as far as because Rise of Skywalker still made $1 billion.
Yes,
stuff at the box office. So, but Solo was the only one and Solo was the better movie, and that ended up
which isn't saying much, by the way.
No, that's a low bar.
Yeah.
Rise of Skywalker also has probably the dumbest scene in any Star Wars movie ever. Well, like bottom 5. Disable the speeders. They're not riding speeders.
Oh, the horses.
They can fly now?
Oh.
They fly now.
They fly
now.
Yeah.
Tell your fucking ship! Or just, fighters, can you just shoot those fucking horses off our ship, please?
Yeah, I mean, you got shields.
Insects.
Yeah. You got shields. The ship can take it. Just a little scruff damage.
The only thing that would have made that scene work for me is if they weren't on horses, but they were pretending to ride horses while they had their moles clapping coconuts together.
From my experience with Rise of Skywalker, it was rather depressing because I have something that I can say. I will say this: Rise of Skywalker, I will forever despise this movie. However, it will always hold a special place in my heart for one reason only. Opening night of the movie, like Thursday night, opening night when I went to go see it, was actually on my birthday.
Nice.
And I had this whole thing of I get to see the final episodic Star Wars movie on my birthday, and I went with some friends, and we were all like, I of course went in there cautious, like I was like kind of worried, but at the same time I was like, you know what, this is going to be the ultimate birthday present. And I walked out, honestly, when I first saw it, not really knowing how I felt about it. Part of me was like, oh, okay, there's actually some stuff here I liked, and there's actually some stuff there I liked. I think I was just trying to make my birthday the most of it. So I was just sort of like, yeah, it wasn't as bad. And it wasn't until I rewatched it again that I was like, shit, this is the birthday gift I ended up getting. I'm
going to use a quote from Ash in the first Alien film. I can't lie to you about your chances, but you have my sympathies.
Yes.
Also,
because that movie just
Also, there's sorry to interrupt you, but there was one thing that really I was on the verge of straight up walking out of the theater. Like I was on the verge of walking out of the theater. It's when Rey, Finn, 3PO, R2, and Poe, when they get to that planet where the remnant of the second Death Star is, and then she has this Sith dagger, and then she opens it up, and I'm like, You motherfuckers! Like
Goonies.
Straight up ripped off the Goonies. Like, remember that scene in the Goonies when Mikey has the medallion and he's lining up the rocks? That's what it fucking was. I was like, okay, fuck you, I'm done. I was just about to walk out of there.
You know how impractical that was too? Like
extremely.
They literally had
off
this
the Goonies.
dagger get made for a certain position that the wreckage was in. Well, that was years ago, and being that the Death Star remnants are in water, there's going to be lots of moving around. So the mere fact that they were able to perfectly line that up after all these years makes no sense whatsoever. On top of the fact that they ripped off the Goonies.
2 words: bad writing.
Exactly. And not to mention though that like, wasn't this like planets like isn't it civilized or something? Shouldn't they have like a bunch of scrappers down there? I mean, like,
you would think.
Yeah, it would have been a
Scavengers.
scavengers would have been a scavenger's paradise though. I mean, hell, even Ray even like managed to maneuver through the wreckage of the second Death Star. I mean, oh, why wasn't even the New Republic even able to find the remnants of the second Death Star and just?
Well, you know why? Because those remnants shouldn't even exist, especially in such pristine condition, being that it blew up into tiny particles. And speaking of Rey, how was she able to drive that vehicle through the rain, through the water? Think about this.
Force cop out.
Here's the reason. Because she's been stuck on a desert planet for her entire life.
Yeah.
And you're telling me that now all of a sudden she knows how to ride through water. Oh, and by the way, the new chick, she told Ray that you can't do it because even the most experienced like pilots or navigators have trouble going through those waves. Ray, she just does it so easily.
Hey,
No struggles.
sand is sort of like waves, but it's just like desert. It's like sand waves.
Quicksand, dick sand. Was she riding through the quicksand and dick sand? Is that what she was doing?
No, but yeah, that was horrible. And I've heard some arguments saying like, oh, because she ends up like we mentioned earlier with that Emperor moment and a few other stuff that like, oh, she's not as much of a Mary Sue and and Rise of Skywalker. Like and
she's
stuff
the
like that.
biggest
I was
Mary
like,
Sue in that one.
I was like, I feel like out of all of them, that was the one where she showed, because like the thing is with the first film, yeah, sure, fine, but she's just now like you're just being introduced to that character. By the third film, and you still have not actually had that character lose a fight, get hurt, get injured, do anything like that.
No real obstacles to overcome.
It's almost like that was my issue with like Captain Marvel too, because like not a single person could lay a hand on Captain Marvel when I saw that movie, and I was like, to me, it's like the best kind of characters, are the ones that you're like, oh shit, they're in peril. They're as they're trying to fight, like you feel that they're in peril. Look at Indiana Jones. He's getting his ass kicked a lot of times while he's fighting certain characters and stuff like that, and it makes you kind of worry for the character. You're like, oh shoot, how's he going to get out of this? And it makes you on the edge of your seat and
a good connection and investment to the character. Absolutely.
Yeah,
that's how you craft a compelling action scene.
Yeah,
give the scene stakes. If they're just going to barrel through it like it's nothing, then it's just boring.
Also, there was
like you're on God mode.
Yeah.
On the remnants of the second Death Star, like there was a holocron. What the fuck was that even doing here in the first place? And
how did it survive?
And where the fuck was this secret room in the first place? Where the fuck was it?
Yeah, we didn't see that in the in Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
And then here we are, Rise of Skywalker. Everything is intact. Well, not everything, but a lot is intact that shouldn't be intact.
Yeah.
At the very most, even if those pieces survive the explosion, the water erosion, the rust, the moving and shifting tides, that shit should have been underwater. But at that point, it'd been 30 years, 34 years since
Battle of Endor,
since the original trilogy. Yeah, since Battle of Endor. That thing shouldn't even exist. It should be particles, dust, like we saw it.
It should
But
look like the
wasn't.
fucking Titanic.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's even stretching it because that's accepting the idea that, oh, yeah, parts of it survived. You have to get past that part just to say that, okay, it should look like rustic. The technology in there, the doors opening by themselves shouldn't work, but it does. And then we get to see a cute little dark side Ray with her little sharp teeth. Like,
yeah, and the fucking double-sided lightsaber, like, both that thing. Like,
I'm thinking to myself, you're cock teasing us so much.
Which also was stolen straight out of Empire Strikes Back, sort of. Whenever he is on Dagobah, and then he sees that other Darth Vader, and then cuts his head off, and it turns out it's Luke Skywalker under the helmet. Like that whole thing. It's like it almost felt like a complete rip off of that scene.
Because it totally was.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we get that amazing little fight scene, which, again, visually looking, it looked really good. And I actually did a little project where I added in the Battle of the Heroes theme from Revenge of the Sith with them fighting. And it actually worked out pretty good. And it just made me depressed. I'm like, you know what? I wanted to be invested in this fight. But the context just sucks ass.
Speaking
the
of
choreography isn't that good either.
Yeah.
I was so disappointed.
Compared to Revenge of the Sith, it's not even a contest.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I will say I have issues with some of the choreo because I'm more of the classic trilogy type fight. So I'm more into like the slower pace type things. So I still have issues with that Revenge of the Sith
it's more
fight.
of a Kendo style.
Whenever that Revenge of the Sith fight, whenever they're like ballet dancing and they're spinning the whole thing around, and I was like, oh, feels really odd, and like they're pretty much dancing with each other rather than fighting. But like they have that whole scene where for like 2 minutes they're spinning their lightsabers, and I'm like,
yeah,
okay,
are you gonna fucking hit each other or what?
Yeah, so I still have issues. I still have issues with that style of fighting that they did in that movie, but I prefer that over this thing that doesn't even look smooth and just doesn't even look well choreographed. It's
very rough.
Also, another thing. Well, I forgot the name of the planet though, but like the Palpatine was alive on this.
Exegol.
Exegol. Yeah.
What a stupid name.
Yeah, and not to mention the fucking TIE fighters. They look seriously, they look like fucking Doritos though. They look like Doritos. Like the wings. They look like Doritos. Like, what the fuck? And not to mention, who the fuck were those people in the robes though, in the throne room? Who the fuck were they?
Yeah. And talk about the Emperor, like, I don't know if you guys heard this, but apparently there was literally one sentence. Literally, it's just like what you talked about with them cutting out the scene with Luke where he's mourning the loss of Han Solo.
Yep.
That's would have been so impactful. There's literally one sentence that literally would have explained why the Emperor was back that they completely cut out. And it's whenever Kylo meets him and he's like asking him, he's like, what are you? And he says less, like more than a clone, less than a man, or something like that. And so that's just a way of telling you sort of like maybe that he is a little bit of like a more advanced version of a clone or something like that. Like it would have been a way of telling you that without, going too far into explaining it, but just something, giving us something, and that would have at least given you something, some form of explanation. But nope, they gave us nothing. They're just like, oh, here's the Emperor, guys.
Yeah, they gave a passaway line. He literally requoted himself from Revenge of the Sith. The dark side of the Force is a pathway to many abilities, some consider to be unnatural. That's literally what he said in the film to explain how he's back. One line of dialogue to explain it, and I'm like, that doesn't explain anything to me.
Yeah,
I see a whole bunch of test tube babies of Snoke.
But no, Poe explained it perfectly. Somehow, Palpatine returned. Flawless.
Yeah.
Bullshit.
No
like,
kidding.
last time we saw him, he was literally falling down a chasm to his death.
Yeah.
Unless the Emperor that was on the second Death Star was in fact a clone.
Which would lessen the sacrifice that Vader made.
Yeah, which would have been stupid though.
If that was the real, being the real emperor,
this trilogy is already fucked.
And you know what I find funny is that like everyone, okay, like every person on Earth when they were watching that Rise of Skywalker trailer, they freaked out when they heard the cackle from the Emperor.
Yes,
and stuff
even
like that.
McDermott's laugh.
And you know, and I was the only human being I know that sat there, and as soon as that cackle happened from the Emperor, I was like, oh fuck, oh god, no. Oh fuck, oh god, no, please, oh god. I was really scared when I heard that Emperor laugh, because I was like, I swear if you put the Emperor in this movie, because I didn't want him at all in the film, because then you ruin Vader's arc, and you just shit all over that. And so the fact that people were excited when they heard that laugh or whatever, I was like, really, guys?
They're out of ideas.
I was like,
you're like Lieutenant Dan and Forrest Gump on New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
Your reaction, if it's not going to be what when you hear Emperor Palpatine, it's not what, it's what. Yeah. That's what we were like, just what.
Oh shit!
Yeah.
And then the trilogy went out with a whimper. It ends with bullshit.
Yep.
They give us.
Oh, and let's not forget about all those starships. Exactly. All those starships that we saw.
The Death Star, the mini Death Star tech on several hundred Star Destroyers. Do they realize that you have like a shit ton of men on board those crafts, and they're buried underneath the ice? How did they survive all that time?
Just sitting like, hey, Pappy, can we come out now?
Yeah.
And Palpatine just looked gross. He looked like what I said earlier, zombie Emperor. Like it was disgusting. I was like, why does he look so? And I mean, I get the Emperor's powerful, but are you really telling me that he would be able to shoot that many ships in the galaxy by shooting his hands up in the sky and being able to take every single one of those ships? I didn't really buy that.
Which, by the way, that very same lightning was used against Rey, and she was blocking it. Yeah. That's utterly hilarious. You're telling me that Force lightning that destroys or disables ships can be blocked by 2 lightsabers? Are you kidding me?
I actually had I actually saw a YouTube channel that had the gall to ask what was the better, climactic, moment, and it was the, I am the Sith, and it was like, and I, am all the Jedi, and then doing the whole thing, or the I am Iron Man, and then the snap. Like I actually had someone who compared the 2 scenes and was asking which one was better.
Yep. Also, another thing, why do we get the feeling that that J.J. Abrams ripped off of King of the Monsters?
What scene?
You remember when King Ghidorah was shooting, extended his wings and lightning shot out and destroyed the aircraft, like jets and stuff?
Yeah.
And remember how Palpatine disabled the starships with his Force lightning?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was getting a similar vibe from that. Also, in the trailer, they spoiled the entire that scene though, where that the Resistance that Hope was lost until Lando shows up with a shit ton of starships. Like, not to mention, you could see a few. You could see the Ghost. You could see the Razor Crest. You could see a bunch of other ships in there. I even saw.
Where were these fucking guys in the beginning of the trilogy? What, they were just out chilling somewhere?
Yeah.
First Order destroys the New Republic, and you're just sitting there silently.
Yeah.
Flet says Disney does not get the Jedi story. They don't get the magic of Star Wars. The storylines are terrible, just terrible, awful. He also says Lucas said Emperor was dead after Return of the Jedi. Disney only brought him back because of money to try and sell the film.
And lack of planning.
Now, the friend I actually watched Rise of Skywalker with, he actually was a fan of the movie, and he was telling me, trying to defend it, and was saying that it was actually smart to bring back the Emperor. First off, he said, Vader's, redemption was him, saving Luke. I'm like, well, by saving Luke, he's killing his master. That's the thing that is like, oh my god, he has that much of a gall to actually kill his master. But
bring balance to the Force.
But the thing is, he says, well, the thing is Star Wars started with the Emperor, and it ended with the Emperor. He's like, so that's like the perfect way to start and then end your whole franchise is with that same character. And I was like, I was just kind of face palming. I was like, no.
Wrong.
Yeah.
And then finally, we get to the scene on Tatooine. Rey Skywalker buries the lightsabers. Oh, she has her own lightsaber now. Who are you? Rey. Rey who? Rey. Garbage.
Rey Mysterio.
Rey.
I would have preferred that. She said Rey Mysterio. I would have been more okay with that.
Puts on the mask.
Rey who?
Mysterio.
Rey Skywalker.
That would have even made more sense than the shit we got.
Yep.
Rey. Rey who? Ray gun.
Rey who? Rey.
The fact
Fuck
that
me.
The fact that she was that they were trying to make a Palpatine have the Skywalker name is just insulting to Skywalker. I'm sorry.
And to the entire story.
She should have went with Organa if she was going to take someone else's name. She was much closer to Leia than she was to Luke or Han.
Oh yeah. I mean, and I'm curious to know, do you guys if she was related to anyone? I actually was one of the very few people who actually didn't mind the whole she's a nobody and her parents were just
I agree with that.
Avengers. I was actually okay with that in The Last Jedi. That was something in The Last Jedi I was okay with. But because not everyone needs to be related to someone else. Like I thought that was a okay thing. But
that's true because Anakin wasn't related to anybody.
Yeah,
he turned out just fine to be the chosen one. But I will say this: that making Rey a Palpatine, if they had did it earlier, like if they hinted towards it in The Force Awakens, and then fully explored it, well, not fully explored it, but opened the proverbial can of worms on it. Think about the character development that could have gone through her head. Yeah. That she's related to one of the most evil men in the entire galaxy. How is she going to deal with that? And then Luke realizing that it's like he's got to train the offspring of his mortal enemy. That could have provided really good story bits. But
part of the juicy storytelling of killing off Chewie, but they didn't have they did not have the balls to do that, unfortunately. And now would y'all have preferred? Because I heard some fans have said that they actually would have preferred her as a Kenobi. I don't know if you guys would have preferred her as a Kenobi or a Palpatine.
I mean, they could have made it work somehow.
Well, I said this. I know I said this in the last episode, so I'm going to end up repeating my talking points here. Here's what I think they should have done if they had to give Rey some relation to legacy characters. Not have her be Palpatine's granddaughter. Have her be his creation. I mean, there's always been the theory that Plagueis created Anakin because Shmi was a virgin. There was no father to Anakin, and because they have implied how fucking Plagueis influenced the midi-chlorians, if you want to go there, to create life. And of course, since Palpatine was Plagueis' apprentice, he catches one of that and he's like, I want some of that too. He can't have Anakin because, well, he's already made. But he'll take him as his apprentice as the next best thing. After years of trial and error, he creates Rey. And that would explain why she's able to do all this shit through the magic of plot armor and bad writing. I think her being a creation would have made more sense.
Yeah.
It's a bit far-fetched, but it's Star Wars.
Speaking of father and daughter and all that stuff, let's talk about the whole plot line they threw in there. Just, last minute as a little thing of saying, oh, hey, Lando has a daughter. And this is his daughter here at the end of the movie.
Is the mother that feminazi droid from Solo?
Oh God.
Oh God.
Yuck.
Speaking of droid, I take back what I said about Han Solo. There is actually one scene. Okay, there is one scene that I thought was actually well done in Rise of Skywalker. If I had to throw in a positive, the positive is, C-3PO has been one of the most useless characters. I love him. I love C-3PO. But let's all face it, he's useless. He just sits around and is like, "Oh my, oh how dare you!" You know, he just does like stuff like that. He's the useless
comic relief
joke guy.
Yep.
But they actually did give him a moment in Rise of Skywalker, and that was nice. Whenever he
and then they undid it.
When he sacrifices his whole, all of his kind of memory that he had, when they completely sacrificed that and let him like say like, "I'm just looking at my friends one last time," and that like moment there, I was like, okay, this was actually, that scene was actually really good. And then they,
I just couldn't.
They
but
eventually,
I didn't buy his friendship with those characters.
Yeah,
though.
He known these people for a short period of time. They're your acquaintances at most. The friends would have been Leia, Han, Luke, Chewie, R2.
Was Chewie in that pack at the time, or
I think he was actually. You're right.
Did they rescue Chewie at the time?
No, I don't think he was. I think this was before they rescued Chewie.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
I don't know. I've only seen the movie twice, and it's been a long time since I've watched that piece of shit.
Same.
Yeah, same. I mean, I include it every time we do like Star Wars Day marathons, but it's
it's a rite of passage. That's all.
Yeah.
Well, does anybody have any last words on Rise of Skywalker?
Sucks.
Yeah.
This Last Jedi, The Last Jedi, and The Force Awakens should never have been made. Disney, you failed us for the last time. You should have
Shat the bed.
God, the fact that they went from all this to Mandalorian, and that was ran by Jon Favreau, goes to show that Kathleen Kennedy should get out of there. Have Jon Favreau run Lucasfilm, all that stuff. Just completely kick her out, because she does not know what she's doing. And and I'm curious, what do you guys think of overall of like Solo and Rogue One?
Rogue
One is the preferred film.
Yeah,
I prefer that one, but I don't. They took from another story in the expanded universe and crafted their story with Rogue One here. They gave us a female protagonist that was kind of boring for me. I mean, it was okay. I can watch it, but I mean,
it's a perfectly fun movie.
Yeah. So, but I mean, out of Rogue One and Solo, Rogue One is the preferred film. And as for Mandalorian, I've said before that it's average. I mean, there's nothing really special about it. You can enjoy it. It doesn't necessarily fuck things up. But the fact
I actually really enjoy Mandalorian.
I really like Mandalorian.
Yeah.
The thing is that with the Book of Boba Fett, it's being run by pretty much the same people. In fact, in this interview, with the interview with Tamora Morrison, he was literally like, he was telling Jon Favreau, like, look, this is Boba Fett's talking too much. And Jon Favreau was like, yeah, but I want you to say the lines. So Boba Fett talking a lot, Boba Fett being an embarrassment. It's kind of like, well, what the fuck? And then, of course, the overall bigger issue, the firing of Gina Carano, which is why I can't ever enjoy anything else that Disney puts out. I was really looking forward to the Book of Boba Fett, but I realized that these are the same assholes that fired her, the same assholes that said that you're racist or sexist for not liking The Last Jedi, or if you think that Rey is a Mary Sue, you're sexist. So I can't ever really support these guys. I don't care how tolerable their shows are. The fact of the matter is that they still fired Gina Carano, and they didn't receive any backlash for it. Things weren't changed, and you would think that that's what would happen. Firing firing an actress just for having a differing opinion like that, it just
like a big slap in the face.
Yeah, it's a slap in the face. It's utterly ridiculous, and I can never forgive Lucasfilm for that. And I still we haven't heard an apology from Rian Johnson for calling fans racist and sexist. I mean, that's not, you don't just use those terms lightly. You're going out of your way to insult the people that are supposed to be giving you money, for your films.
And now I will say this. Apparently, Kelly Marie Tran, who plays Rose, went off social media because of what they said, because of what some of them said to her. And it's fine if you go and you start saying like, "Oh, I don't like the character Rose," and you actually have your opinion on all that matter. But what she was all upset about is how people were like bashing her ethnicity and was saying like how dare they cast an Asian woman as Rose and all
that
this
doesn't
stuff.
make any sense. And I heard conflicting reports about that. I heard conflicting reports about it because something similar happened to Daisy Ridley. They said that people were shaming her on the internet because she was a woman in a lead role. Turns out Daisy Ridley actually just deleted her social media because she wanted to get away with it. And if I remember correctly, it was a similar situation because that's what she said. That's what Killer Marie Tran said. And I haven't looked into it in a while, but I do remember that was a very controversial issue. And if that's really what happened, that's obviously horrible. With that said, welcome to the fucking internet. I have to keep telling people this because they're not getting it through their heads, that you better expect backlash for anything you post. This video right now, this live stream, when it goes up, eventually somebody might find it and say that we're all wrong. They're going to find something to say about it that's negative. And you know what? Fine. Yeah. Take it for what it is. You take it on the chin, you keep moving.
When you're doing war on pop culture and you're dealing with, elitists and all that bullshit, like if they ever come across your channel and they see one of these videos, you're going to get hate comments, but that's just what happens.
It's part of being on the internet.
And you just roll past it. It's like, what can they really do? They're not gonna physically hurt you. They're saying stupid crap, and but they're not gonna physically hurt you or do anything to you. So yeah, exactly.
Also, another thing though, here's how it should have done. Like, what they should have done? Like George Lucas should acquire. Like, what he should have done? He should just buy back Lucasfilm from Disney. However, he should be in charge, or let someone else be in charge of his work though, instead of Kathleen Kennedy. Just kick her, take that bitch and literally fire her, literally throw her out of a window, out of the front window.
Well, see, I don't blame George, and the reason I don't blame George Lucas for giving it to Kathleen is if you look at Kathleen Kennedy, she is a legendary producer. Like, she can't run a company, she can't run Lucasfilm, all that stuff. She sucks at that. But she's produced Indiana Jones. She's produced E.T. She's produced Jurassic Park. She's produced all these iconic movies. There's so many films. Just look through her can't speak today. Just look at all that stuff of what she's produced, and you're going to be like, holy shit, this girl is has a freaking long list of great content that she's a producer on. But a producer is not the same as running a company. It's
Yeah, actually, more like take her out of she could still work for Lucasfilm still, but she will not have to. She's not going to be running. She will just be the producer, but she's not going to be running the show. Okay, let that be for Jon Favreau or Dave Filoni. Let those two run the show, because I trust those two compared to that woman.
Yeah.
Good luck with that, I say. Good luck with trying to make them.
But yeah, the things that this is all just a handful of things she's produced. Lincoln, Curious Case of Benjamin Button, Indiana Jones, War of the Worlds, Signs, Jurassic Park, AI, The Sixth Sense, and E.T., Schindler's List. She's got a long list of
iconic films.
Of iconic films she has actually been a producer on. And so I feel like, her being a producer, that's okay. Just don't make her the head of a company.
Let somebody else be ahead of the company that's a complete diehard Star Wars fan. Let someone run that shit though. Or better yet though, here's what they should do. That maybe George Lucas should buy Lucasfilm back, or run 95% of it while Disney gets 5% of it though, because 90% of it that Disney did fucked it up though, and then 5% of George Lucas did, it's basically bullshit. I just think that George Lucas should acquire some of the rights though. He should get half. He should be in charge of Lucasfilms, and while Disney be in charge of the other half. Just be in charge, everybody gets the same share of the pie though. And if he doesn't like it, if he sees something that doesn't go with him. He could just back out and take everything with him, though, and then Disney could use that monopoly.
Yeah.
Well,
Absolutely.
We're gonna go and call it there. It's getting pretty late, but I want to thank both of you guys for coming on. It was great having you guys on, Danner. It's great having you back on. So
Thanks for having me.
I do want to
It's a
say
pleasure.
I do want to say that it's such a funny contrast seeing the Rotten Tomatoes, how the critics gave The Last Jedi 91% on Rotten Tomatoes, and the audience gave that 42%. And then you look at The Rise of Skywalker, where critics were actually right that time. They gave it a 52%, and audiences gave it 86%.
Yeah.
So it's like the way that it's just did a switcheroo there is kind of fascinating.
Anyway.
All right. Well, thank you guys very much for tuning in and supporting us. A special thanks goes out to Mother Molder, Kyle Curtis Flett, and J Man's Movie Cave for being Patreon supporters. We greatly appreciate it. And with that all being said, thank you guys very much for watching, listening, and supporting. And until next time, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the war. I'm Special Agent Spooky Clutter.
I'm Special Agent Carter Sauce.
Special Agent Dr. Richtofen.
And until next time, fellow investigators, remember,
the entertainment is out there.